Hey, you old tortoise, are you planning to have a game of the tortoise and the hare with me? Let me tell you, I definitely won't fall asleep, so just give up. Chen was running as fast as possible. Seeing the nether passage expert close on his tail, he let out a shout. As for the nether passage expert, he still had a mask covering his face, but the corners of his mouth were constantly twitching. He was clearly infuriated. The reason he wore a mask was to cover up the blood mark on his forehead. That would sell out his identity. However, even if he was wearing a mask, Chen knew that he was from some tortoise race, so he repeatedly called him an old tortoise, synonymous with calling him a bastard. Hey, you old tortoise, why won't you leave me alone? Hey, I'm talking to you. Is being a tortoise fun? You get to be a bastard and a cuckold for life. Hey, can you speak? As Chen ran, his mouth didn't slack off. No matter how Chen cursed him, that nether passage expert didn't take his bait and respond. However, his trembling mouth told Chen that he was going crazy with rage. He probably couldn't speak. Hey, you can't catch me, so you should just give up. Otherwise, if you fail, you'll feel so depressed that you might kill yourself. Why bother? Advised Chen. The nether passage expert finally coughed up a mouthful of blood from rage. Little brat, just wait for me to catch you. I'll definitely make you beg for death. Hey, why are you so angry? I'm just talking here. Tortoise blood is a good supplement, so don't waste it. Can you pack it up for me so I can use it to make wine? Shouted Chen. However, now he found that the nether passage expert refused to make a sound again strangely. You don't need to waste the effort. He has already blocked his ears and is only using his spiritual strength to keep a lock on your aura. Whether you shout or use spiritual fluctuations, he won't hear you. That wasn't a bad idea for him. Just now, when he coughed up blood, his life and death energy surged chaotically. It almost caused a backlash. You should know that if a nether passage expert's life and death energy becomes unbalanced, it will be very dangerous for them, especially if it's the death energy that erupts. If he didn't do this, he'd really die from anger. Evilmoon's voice contained a strange emotion now. Life and death energy was incredibly powerful, but it was a double-sided blade. If the user didn't control it properly, they would end up killing themselves. If that nether passage expert really did die from Chen's cursing, he would probably be recorded as history's most useless nether passage expert. Chen, what exactly are you planning? With your speed, you can easily throw him off. You couldn't be really planning on angering him to death, right? Asked Evilmoon suddenly. If Chen used his full power, his lightning domain would instantly grow and allow him to throw off this nether passage expert. That wasn't even difficult. We're already so familiar with each other, and you still don't know what I'm planning? You're hurting my feelings here. Fine, we've basically arrived. We're going to the territory of the ancient races. Just now, did I let you absorb a bit of his essence blood? Help me find this bastard's tortoise hole. If I didn't give them a vicious blow, they would never remember not to mess with their master laughed Chen. What the, so you're planning on? Damn, you're really evil. But I like it. Hee, I feel like I'm being corrupted by you. Why does it feel so delightful to con others? Humans really are interesting, praised Evilmoon. Fuck off, it wasn't as if you were originally some nice and innocent person. When it comes to being evil, we're two sides of the same coin, snorted Chen. After all, Evilmoon belonged to the dark evil dragon race. It literally had the word evil in its name, yet it called Chen evil. What nonsense, my dark evil dragon race only cared about fighting directly with our actual power. Although we might be cruel, before meeting you, I didn't even know what a sinister plot was, said Evilmoon. If you didn't even know what a sinister plot was, where did the evil part of your dark evil dragon race's name come from? Demanded Chen curiously. I actually don't know. There are over 300 branches of the evil dragons, and it's impossible to trace back our origins. As for the evil dragon race's history, who has time to study that? If I had time to study such a thing, I'd have long since been devoured by other evil dragons, said Evilmoon. Nice, we've arrived. Chen suddenly let out an excited shout. An endless range of mountains had appeared in front of them along with countless ancient buildings. These buildings were built into the mountains, which had many caves. It looked very primitive. This was the world of the ancient races. In all of history, there had been 4 cases of the ancient races expanding their territory. The ancient races split their territory amongst themselves, with each race getting their own land. It was easy to recognize the land of each race because they would have a giant statue at their front gates. That statue was their symbol and signified which race they were. Long Chen, let's have a good fight. We'll slaughter these ancient races. Evil Moon had an intense urge to kill, perhaps because it had been so long since it had had a satisfying slaughter. However, Evil Moon waited a long time without receiving a reply from Long Chen. It asked, "Did you hear me?" Long Chen still didn't reply. He was flying through the air, looking at the tribes living in the mountains. He saw groups of children playing by the waterside, and women not far looking over them. Seeing the naive and innocent smiles of those children, Long Chen was conflicted. He hated the ancient races. He wanted to kill all the ancient races' experts. He wanted to destroy those bastards who forgot their own ancestors and history and only knew how to kneel to the Shen beasts. However, when he saw those children, he was conflicted. He wanted revenge, but did that mean he had to kill these children who had just been born? Long Chen, I know. Why are you wasting your time? Enemies are enemies and should be pulled up by the roots. You are going to kill their fathers and mothers, but if you don't eliminate the roots, then once they grow up, they'll kill your descendants, said Evil Moon, having seen through Long Chen's thoughts. So by destroying the roots, there won't be any more trouble? Asked Long Chen. Of course. Then tell me your dark evil dragon race is cruel and vicious, and I suppose you subscribe to that principle of destroying your enemies by their roots. So tell me, do you have no enemies then? Evil Moon was silent. The dark evil dragon race had many, many enemies. Evil Moon, I don't know how you view me, but as long as someone can fight shoulder to shoulder with me, I can call them my brother, and you are no exception. Although you've lived countless years, even having once fought with a sovereign, there is just one thing I have to tell you. There are no absolute rights or wrongs in this world. Even a sovereign, even a god, cannot be absolutely correct. If a person really feels that what they do is absolutely correct, then they are not far from becoming a devil. I am enemies with the ancient races. Neither of us is wrong. They want to kill me, so I naturally must get vengeance. That is right. As for the ancient races, they don't get along with the human race and want to eliminate threats in preparation for the storm. To the ancient races, this is also right. They are right and I am right. Then who is wrong? What's wrong is this era we live in. We were born in the wrong era. If a sovereign was still present to rule over the races, we would be at peace, with the races living in harmony. Our civilization would prosper. But that is not the case. I want to kill them. Right now, that's right. But 1,000 years from, it might not be. Most importantly, in the face of these innocent children, I just can't attack. Although I know you'll curse me for being stupid, please let me be this stupid, sighed Long Chen as he flew past. Evil Moon was silent for a long while. Fine. I don't quite understand what you're saying, but thank you for viewing me as a brother. Although it didn't quite agree with his principles, Evil Moon was still a bit moved by what he had said. After being with Long Chen for this long, it had already seen through his character. His emotions were simple and direct. When Long Chen flew over the territory of the ancient races, he drew the attention of countless experts. They flew into the air to stop him. Long Chen slowed down. As for the Nether Passage expert behind him, he also slowed down. Things became strange. He also didn't want to fight within the territory of the ancient races. However, even if Long Chen had slowed down, that didn't mean he was so slow that these Life Star experts could possibly stop him. He flew past them. Because he was so fast, many of those experts didn't even understand what was happening before his figure vanished from their sight. News has come from that side. The Patriarch is personally chasing that little bastard, so everyone should be prepared. Once the Patriarch captures him, we have to immediately activate the transportation formation disk. The little bastard will be transported here alone, and then we'll send him through 18 consecutive transportation formations all the way to the central Shen region. After that, we'll immediately erase the spatial mark so that even if Chu Jianying comes, she'll have no proof. Don't be careless. Within the depths of the ancient race's territory, within a giant cave, a stern-faced elder was speaking. He didn't have a single hair on his head. Race leader, it has already been over an hour. Why has there still been no news from the Patriarch? Could something unexpected have happened? Asked an elder. What a joke. That little bastard's only at the soul transformation realm. With the Patriarch handling him personally, wouldn't he have to obediently be captured? Just patiently wait, shouted the stern elder. They didn't know that their Patriarch was so infuriated by Long Chen that to be safe, he had blocked off his senses and was focused entirely on chasing. He hadn't sent them in. While they were still here, foolishly waiting. Boom. Just as they were foolishly waiting, a powerful explosion came from outside, shocking them. They all rushed out of the cave. Sorry for making you wait so long. I've come myself to your door. Up in the sky, Long Chen was smiling at the dumbfounded elders of the ancient races. Chen. When they saw Long Chen, all those ancient race experts' expressions changed. Long Chen had descended on their tribe from the sky. Wow, tortoise lairs are very lively. You actually had so many people gathered. I suppose you must have been discussing me, right? Long Chen's gaze quickly swept through everyone here. He saw that not everyone here was from the tortoise race. The majority were from other ancient races. It was too obvious what they were thinking. They were definitely after him. Through Evelmun's senses, Long Chen had found the place with the strongest bloodline aura of that old tortoise amongst these scattered tribes. That was why he had come here. The ancient races' tribes were different from the human race's sections. They had no protective formations around them. First of all, they didn't need them because no one dared to touch them. The second reason, however, was rather embarrassing. It was because they had no idea how to set formations up. The entire tribe was thrown into chaos. Countless tortoise race experts surged out, surrounding Long Chen. At the same time, experts from the other tribes also rushed over. Long Chen watched all this with a faint smile on his face. That nether passage expert had been thrown off far into the distance by him. Using his life and death gates to travel was impossible. If he activated such power in this place, the weak women and children of the ancient races would definitely die. So he was still busy flying over. Furthermore, tortoises never specialized in speed. As soon as Long Chen and the nether passage expert had reached the territory of the ancient races, the latter had been thrown off. Long Chen, how dare you barge into my 7-star dragon tortoise race's territory? You'll pay for your sins. As Long Chen was surrounded by experts, a young man with a large tortoise shell on his back walked forward. A son of a tortoise also dares to be so arrogant? Long Chen glanced at that person. He suddenly vanished, reappearing in front of that young man. Watch out! That voice came from the nether passage expert. He had finally managed to catch up. Long Chen was as quick as lightning, but that young man was also a powerful existence, an Empyrean. His tortoise shell instantly appeared in front of him, and 7 runes were flashing on top of it like 7 interconnected stars, emanating a heavy aura. The young man didn't show any panic seeing Long Chen's sudden attack. He had immense confidence in his defense. Boom! Long Chen's punch smashed through the tortoise shell, shattering it. At the same time, the young man was blown to bits. Long Chen's divine ring had appeared behind him, and he was covered in green dragon scales. He had instantly summoned his divine ring and green dragon battle armor, which allowed him to instantly slay this genius of the 7-star dragon tortoise race. Your shell was quite hard, but it's too bad it wasn't fully grown. You're still lacking compared to the old tortoise, said Long Chen indifferently after killing that person. In truth, Long Chen felt some sorrow for that person. He had actually been quite powerful, not that much weaker than Xiang Yunfei's clone. However, he had been too arrogant. He had thought that just his tortoise shell would be enough to block Long Chen's punch. Hence, he hadn't even activated his divine abilities. Of course, Long Chen had been so fast that it was unlikely he would have had time to activate any divine abilities. Even if he didn't activate a divine ability, he could have tried falling back while blocking with his tortoise shell. That way, he might only have been injured and not killed. He was too overconfident in his defense, so he had died. The nearby elders of the 7-star dragon tortoise race roared furiously. That young man had been their top heavenly genius. All their hopes for the future had rested on him. Long Chen, I will definitely kill you. The Nether Passage expert finally appeared in the sky, but he didn't have the power to save that genius disciple of his. His eyes were completely scarlet as he let out a powerful punch at Long Chen. Patriarch, please get vengeance for Changling. The bald, stern-faced elder let out a mournful plea. However, his mournful plea had just rung out when Long Chen couldn't help but laugh. Old Tortoise, your identity has been exposed. Is there a need to keep wearing your mask? Long Chen didn't dare to face this berserk Nether Passage expert directly. That life and death energy wasn't something he could block. Hence, he activated the celestial lightning body blink, vanishing. The Nether Passage expert's punch missed. He roared and charged after Long Chen. Long Chen laughed, "Don't be so angry. Look, you're trying to kill me, but I'm not flying into a rage like you. Didn't I only kill one of your bastard descendants? Why get so angry?" Within his lightning domain, Long Chen repeatedly vanished, dodging his attacks. The ancient races were thrown into chaos. The weak fled for their lives, while the strong rushed over, surrounding the tribe. They formed a heaven-encompassing net to trap Long Chen. Patriarch, this place is too small for you to fight freely. Leave it to me. The bald elders suddenly rushed over at Long Chen with thousands of other experts. They were shockingly all half-step Nether Passage experts. They surrounded Long Chen, and outside of their formation was another layer of Life Star experts. A veritable sea of experts were layered like this to make sure Long Chen couldn't get away. It was impossible to count their numbers, but this place had gathered all the Eastern Xian region's ancient race's power. That Nether Passage expert was powerful, but he was actually too powerful. It was like trying to use a hammer to kill a mosquito. He didn't dare to use his full power, so it was better to leave it to a group of weaker combatants who could fight effectively. This person's combat power is extremely terrifying. Just surround him and don't let him run. Only I can face him. The Nether Passage expert shook his head. Of everyone here, only he knew just how powerful Long Chen was. He was the only one who could suppress him. If those half-step Nether Passage experts fought, it would only cause huge casualties. Wow, a Nether Passage expert is personally welcoming me. How moving. I'm not the kind of person who doesn't know how to repay kindness. It's my first time at your grand lair, and while I'm tight on money, I simply must give you this gift. Although this gift is rather meager, I hope you won't laugh at me. It's not the gift but the thought that counts. Everyone, prepare your applause and cheers for this gift. Long Chen began to talk passionately as if he really was giving them a great gift. The experts of the ancient races had a bad feeling following Long Chen's strange words, but before they could do anything, the sky trembled. A terrifying pressure descended and an angry roar rang out. A giant figure fell onto the ground. It had 12 bone spurs on its back pointed at the heavens. A 12th rank sword spine armor dragon had shockingly appeared in front of them. What? The experts were dumbfounded, unable to believe their eyes. However, the sword spine armor dragon let out an angry roar. Long Chen suddenly kicked its jaw so hard that its head flipped up. After that, Long Chen suppressed his aura and actually jumped onto one of the bone spurs on the back of the sword spine armor dragon as if everything that had happened before had nothing to do with him. The sword spine armor dragon had just been summoned out of Long Chen's spiritual space, and its last memories were still strong in its mind. Those were memories of it fighting Long Chen. Now, Long Chen had kicked its head and vanished, replaced by an army of ancient race experts. Its intelligence was very low, and it didn't know what these people were doing. It thought they were with Long Chen, and it furiously opened its mouth, shooting out its golden sphere attack again. Watch out! The Nether Passage expert appeared in front of it, holding a large tortoise shell in his hand to block the attack. Boom! The light sphere exploded. Shreds of it tore through the void, and terrifying ripples spread. Full-strength defense. shouted the bald elder. He also took out a tortoise shell and raised it in front of him. The other experts also entered their strongest defensive states. They had no time to run. The light spread in every direction. Even half-step nether passage experts were killed if they didn't specialize in defense. After all, this was a clash of nether passage experts. That power could destroy heaven and earth. The ancient race's experts had surrounded this place so tightly. Hence, the sudden appearance of the sword spine armor dragon and its attack left them with no time to run. Bloody mist filled the air after this one attack. It was unknown how many experts had just died from this attack. The tight defenses in this place were instantly broken, with only broken remnants remaining. Only the experts with great defensive power had survived. How did this end up happening? The nether passage expert was dumbfounded. He had never dreamed that his ancient race would end up like this. This attack had slain millions of life star experts. Not only was his race decimated, but the ancient races of the eastern Chen region, which were under his command, had suffered a terrible blow. While the nether passage expert was still stunned, the sword spine armor dragon didn't stop. Killing all those experts with one attack had ignited its bloody nature. Its desire to kill erupted. It suddenly spun through the air, and its mountain-sized tail swung at the nether passage expert like a heavenly whip. Boom! The nether passage expert hastily threw his grief out the door and blocked. He was flung into the distance by the tail. Patriarch! All the ancient race experts let out startled cries. The nether passage expert was flung into the distance by the sword spine armor dragon's tail. He left a long ditch in the ground. After such an immense blow, the mask on his face shattered, and his hair flew away. He had been wearing a wig. Now that it flew off, it revealed that he was actually bald. He was an ancient elder whose face was covered in wrinkles. That face was currently filled with rage. However, his defensive power was shocking, as he didn't suffer any injuries from the sword spine armor dragon's tail attack. "I'm fine. Where's Long Chen?" The nether passage expert suddenly noticed that Long Chen, who had been kneeling on the sword spine armor dragon's back, had vanished. "Fuck, did we end up letting him run? We have to chase after him." The bald half-step nether passage expert shouted and was about to fly out. "Get back here. Everyone, you will only be sending yourselves to your deaths if you go. Help me handle this sword spine armor dragon. Its offensive power isn't that great, but its defensive power is terrifying. I will be the main force and you work with me," ordered the nether passage expert. The only one in the ancient races capable of capturing Long Chen was himself. But if he chased after Long Chen, this furious sword spine armor dragon would destroy all the ancient races here. He no longer had the time to bother with Long Chen. The large tortoise shell in the nether passage expert's hand grew until it was the size of a mountain. He smashed it at the sword spine armor dragon. Boom! The sword spine armor dragon was struck and sent flying, flipping through the air. Its huge body was badly crushed. Dust and stone shot out in every direction. Taking advantage of this, the other ancient race experts attacked. The light of divine items lit up like stars in the night sky. Thousands of attacks landed on the sword spine armor dragon's body. All their attacks were concentrated on its abdomen, where its defense was weakest. Those attacks tore through its scales, sending blood flying. How is this possible? The ancient race experts were stunned to find that their attacks were unable to cause any serious injuries. The attacks of their divine items could barely pierce its outer defense, barely scratching its skin. The blood splashing looked like they were doing work, but in reality, this wasn't a fatal wound. The sword spine armor dragon was infuriated at being injured. It opened its mouth again, and a giant light sphere shot out. Anyone touched by that light sphere was instantly turned to dust. Even divine items were unable to stop it. In order to concentrate their power, those experts had been standing together. As a result, over half of them died to this one attack. This attack was different from the first one. It was faster and larger. It didn't give them any chance to react. They despaired. This sword spine armor dragon was even more terrifying than they had thought. Everyone retreat. I'll handle it. The Nether Passage expert roared furiously. His manifestation surged behind him, and a large tortoise appeared within it. Its body was covered in black and white runes. Life and death energy erupted. He had no choice but to fight all out. He could no longer care that this was the territory of the ancient races. If he couldn't suppress the sword spine armor dragon, this territory would be completely destroyed by it. He crazily smashed the giant tortoise shell in his hand on the sword spine armor dragon. Heaven-shaking explosive sounds rang out. The land of the ancient races, everything within millions of miles, was constantly shuddering. With the mountains collapsing, the people of the ancient races fled for their lives. When the Nether Passage expert used his full power, he immediately managed to suppress the sword spine armor dragon. The tortoise shell in his hand was an extremely powerful divine item. In the hands of a Nether Passage expert, it was unleashing amazing power. Regretfully, it was a shield and not an offensive weapon. Furthermore, the sword spine armor dragon was famed for its tough hide. Even if he was able to suppress it, he was unable to kill it quickly. Furthermore, as it struggled, its attacks pierced the earth and the sky. The other experts had no chance to attack, while any of its attacks could take their lives. The Nether Passage expert clenched his teeth. His tortoise shell smashed down repeatedly like a wild tempest, flipping the sword spine armor dragon across the ground. The sword spine armor dragon was only a magical beast, and its intelligence was very low. Since it was no Chen beast, it didn't know how to fight intelligently, instead relying purely on its physical strength. Now its aura was showing signs of flagging. After half an incense stick's worth of time, the Nether Passage expert let out a shout and threw the sword spine armor dragon into the sky. Quick, attack its anus. The Nether Passage expert also launched a quick attack, smashing the sword spine armor dragon on its head. He smashed it so hard that blood spurted out of its mouth, and it fell into a temporary dizzy state. Dozens of ancient race experts holding sharp blades charged over to that area that was even larger than a cave. The intense pain of their attacks caused the sword spine armor dragon to curl up. Suddenly, its butt was raised, and a smelly current shot out of it. A few of the experts had just charged in before they were forced out. That immense power tore through their bodies, and they screamed. A 12th rank magical beast was so terrifying that even the force of its fart wasn't something an ordinary expert could endure. Fortunately, several experts had charged far enough into its body that it didn't manage to expel them. The sword spine armor dragon began to furiously roar and struggle. Those experts within its body were crazily slashing its body with sharp blades. No matter how strong the magical beast, it wouldn't be able to handle such a thing. The sword spine armor dragon crazily twisted and turned on the ground. It was now powerless to fight the Nether Passage expert. The Nether Passage expert raised his tortoise shell that began to rapidly spin. He slashed it at the sword spine armor dragon's neck. Blood splashed. However, the sword spine armor dragon was twisting wildly, causing the attack to hit its tough skull instead. The tortoise shell was stuck in its skull and unable to be retrieved. Being struck in its vitals, the sword spine armor dragon suddenly opened its mouth, unleashing a light sphere that struck the Nether Passage expert that was still trying to pull out the tortoise shell. The Nether Passage expert was surprised that it could still attack at this time. He summoned an instinctive light barrier around him, but when he was struck by the sphere, he still coughed up blood. Blood and flesh flew from his body. That had been the final bit of energy that the sword spine armor dragon had possessed. It collapsed. It was dead. The Nether Passage expert was covered in blood and infuriated. If he wasn't so skilled in defense, that attack could have taken his life. He pulled the shield out of its head. At this time, it was already dead, and the people that had charged into its body flew out. They were also covered in blood, coming out from the place they had entered. They were all stunned. The sword spine armor dragon's defensive powers were so great that even while it was dead and they were in its abdomen, they were unable to pierce their way out. Not good. Chen is killing our people in the eastern mountain range. Patriarch, please save our people. Just at this moment, a young disciple wearing the robes of the ancient races flew over, sobbing. What? Long Chen, how dare you? The Nether Passage expert's fury soared, and ignoring everything else, he charged toward the east. The other experts also roared angrily and followed. In the blink of an eye, most of the experts left. Only a small number of people were left to clean up the battlefield. One of the elders looked at the young disciple. That disciple was actually walking over to the sword spine armor dragon, causing the elder to coldly shout, "There's nothing for you here. Go stand to the side." Hee, that's not right. How is there nothing here for me? I was the one who started this, and I'm not going to let things finish on such a weak note. That disciple laughed. When everyone saw his face, startled cries rang out. Long Chen. That person wearing the robes of a disciple was actually Long Chen. However, he had had his head lowered and was wearing a hat, making it so that they hadn't noticed. Help! Blood splattered. The remaining experts on the battlefield were just life-star experts. They weren't a match for Long Chen, and he slaughtered them in an instant. Although I know it's rude to take back a gift, I just don't like to waste anything, hee. Long Chen waved his hand, gathering the sword spine armor dragon's corpse. He then vanished like a wisp of smoke, completely disappearing from the ancient race's territory. Long Chen had just been gone for a few breaths' time when a furious roar rang out. The Nether Passage expert returned with a group of experts. They had rushed over to the east to see that all their disciples were safe and sound. That had immediately told them that something was up. When they rushed back, they saw that the battlefield was still in ruins. The only thing missing was the sword spine armor dragon's corpse. The Nether Passage expert directly coughed up a mouthful of blood. He began to totter and the world was spinning around him. Things were going dark. Patriarch. The other experts were startled and immediately went to support him. Buzz. Just at this moment, space tore open. A majestic tower appeared, tearing through the void and bringing with it endless divine power and killing intent. When they saw the tower, the ancient races were horrified. They recognized it as the Shen-Tian Daos's core divine item, the Shen-Tian Tower. It had actually descended upon the ancient races at such a time. Was it going to completely destroy them? Li Tianxian and the Patriarch walked out from atop the Shen-Tian Tower. Both their expressions were frosty, and they were both surging with killing intent. However, when they saw this chaotic battlefield, the tattered ancient races, and especially the Nether Passage expert who was still covered in blood and looked almost dead, their expressions became odd. It's nothing, we were just passing by. You don't need to send us off, goodbye. Li Tianxian reacted quickly, pulling the Patriarch back into the Shen-Tian Tower before the other side could say anything. They instantly vanished from the territory of the ancient races. They left behind the stunned ancient races, as well as a pile of ruins that stretched into the distance. Hold it! The Nether Passage expert was just about to try and stop Li Tianxian from leaving when he coughed up another mouthful of blood. As for Li Tianxian, he, the Patriarch, and the Shen-Tian Tower had already vanished. The Nether Passage expert of the ancient races was ashen. This time, the ancient races had been completely screwed. He even felt some regret for accepting the mission this time. It was the Shen beasts who had prompted him to work with Xiang Yunfei to lure Long Chen out and capture him. As long as he didn't show his true face and wasn't recognized, there would be no solid evidence that it had been him. Even if people suspected the ancient races, if they didn't bring out any proof, they were powerless to do anything to them. It was a very shameless scheme, but also seamless. It was just that no one had expected things to develop to this point. Long Chen hadn't been caught. Instead, he had found the headquarters of the ancient races and completely destroyed it. Fortunately, Long Chen hadn't immediately attacked once he had arrived. He had allowed their weaker members to run. Otherwise, many of the ancient races would have found their lineage completely severed. Despite that, the sudden appearance of the sword spine armor dragon had half destroyed them. It was unknown how many tribes had been destroyed. This was an absolute humiliation to the ancient races. He, a grand Nether Passage expert, had attacked and hunted down Long Chen, resulting in Long Chen finding his headquarters and destroying it. He didn't even have a reason that he could make up to strike back at Long Chen for his actions. In other words, even though Long Chen had turned the ancient races to their current state, they had no place to demand justice from. Worst of all, they would become the entire continent's laughingstocks. They would also be mocked by the other ancient races who would be disgusted by them, thinking that they had lost the face of all the ancient races. Originally, this was supposed to be a good way to win favor with the Xian beasts, but now their entire plan had collapsed. The Xian beasts definitely wouldn't be able to stand up for them over this. As for the ancient races in the central Xian region, they wouldn't do anything for them either. Even the Nether Passage expert's head was blank. He had no idea what to do. A report for the Patriarch. Just at this moment, a disciple of the ancient races ran over in panic. What is it? The bald and stern-faced elder shouted coldly. The Nether Passage Patriarch was in no mood to listen to more reports. Long Chen the disciple saw the dark expressions around him and jumped, stuttering too badly to continue. Hurry up, shouted the elder, a bad feeling rising in his heart. Long Chen, he plundered the treasuries of the 9 great races, and the other races didn't get let off either. A total of 246 races had their treasuries emptied. Those races are all amongst our first-tier races. What? Everyone's expressions changed. The Eastern Xian region's ancient races were controlled by the 9 great races, the 9 strongest races amongst them. The 7-star dragon turtle race was one of them. Other races were ranked first tier, second tier, and third tier based on their power. Over 80% of them were third-tier races. Second-tier races were a bit stronger, but it was the first-tier races that possessed the greatest foundations and inheritances. They were the core power of the ancient races. They only had a total of 307 first-tier races, but Long Chen had plundered over 200 of them in this short amount of time. That practically drove them crazy. Just how had he done that? Even if each of those races had opened their gates and invited him in, he couldn't have possibly done it that quickly. Naturally, Long Chen on his own was unable to snatch so many treasures. What they didn't know was that it had been 3 robbers, not 1. He, Dragonbone Evil Moon, and the Heaven-Flipping Seal had gone in 3 different directions. These 3 bandits would immediately use their divine senses as soon as they found a tribe and directly charge into their treasury, taking whatever was inside without even looking. Evil Moon and the Heaven-Flipping Seal were divine items with separate spaces within them for storing things. As for why Long Chen was able to pull off this miracle, the main reason was because the ancient races had been unchallenged for so long that they didn't even think about needing to defend their territory. Not only did the tribes not have defensive formations, but the locations of their treasuries were practically identical. They could just charge through the gates and take what was inside. That was how Long Chen had been so efficient as to plunder so many treasuries in less than half an incense stick's worth of time. As for why he was able to so accurately plunder first-tier races, it was naturally thanks to the cooperation of the ancient races. The 9 great races as well as the first-tier races were all located in the core region of their territory. The 9 great races had a circular river around them to separate them from the first-tier races. The first-tier races were the same, separating them from the second-tier races. Long Chen naturally wouldn't be stupid enough to go running somewhere else to plunder. When he heard that Long Chen had not just snatched the corpse of the sword spine armor dragon, but also the wealth of the ancient races, the Nether Passage expert finally couldn't endure it any longer. He coughed up 3 mouthfuls of blood and fainted. Patriarch. The experts hastily went to help him. Their Patriarch's aura was in chaos now, a sign he was about to be bedeviled. If he wasn't quickly healed, there was even danger of his body exploding. All the ancient races were thrown into chaos. The sun is shining, the grass is green, and the water's clear. Master Long can fish up tortoises even on dry land. Ha! Long Chen was in a good mood. He hadn't expected that he would be able to enter such a great trap as soon as he returned from the original devil race. He was even starting to admire himself. He really was talented. There was a mountain range of spirit crystals on his primal chaos space. Although he hadn't carefully counted, there had to be over 30 billion of them. The ancient races were incredibly wealthy, And they didn't need that many spirit crystals anyway. The spirit crystals that they spent on their cultivation were probably a tenth of what humans needed. Their spirit crystals were mostly used to trade with humans, but in the past few years, they had fewer and fewer interactions with humans, resulting in them accumulating a large number of spirit crystals. The ancient races were not nice and would rather just hoard these spirit crystals than trade with humans to get rid of them. That kind of idiot thinking was not favorable to their development. If they didn't spend money, it wouldn't benefit them. They wouldn't be able to get the resources that were in the human race's hands. The human race might spend a lot of spirit crystals, but the number of spirit crystals that the ancient races were hoarding was insignificant when compared to the entire continent. They couldn't possibly hoard enough to make a difference and actually stall the human race's development. By acting like this, the only ones suffering were them. Long Chen had not just taken such a lot of spirit crystals, but he had also obtained all kinds of must-have items that the ancient races needed for their cultivation. These things were useless to him. He stored those useless resources in a spatial ring and then crushed it, throwing those resources into the chaotic flow of space, where they vanished from this world. These were stolen goods, and Zheng Wenlong couldn't accept them easily as it would cause a conflict between the ancient races and the Huayan sect. Long Chen wouldn't want that either. As for the original devil race, although they had their black market selling a few of the ancient race's items, they did it subtly, in very low numbers. The things that Long Chen had snatched this time were too high level, and he had so many of them. If he had the original devil race sell them, it would be telling the other side that the seller was working with Long Chen. The money that could be obtained by selling these things was not worth the danger. That was why Long Chen only kept the spirit crystals. However, this huge number of spirit crystals was enough to last him a long time. For the first time, he felt that his luck was pretty good. Long Chen, you shouldn't call yourself Master Long but Scoundrel Long because you're an absolute scoundrel. Even though my evil dragon race may be cruel and ruthless, at most we just kill others. But you make them live a life worse than death, said Evil Moon. The ancient races had been half destroyed, with the majority of their top experts slain. Their treasures had been plundered, Long Chen hadn't been captured, and he had even taken the corpse of the sword spine armor dragon. He didn't give them anything. Even Evil Moon was stunned. Then according to you, I should have slaughtered them to the last, completely annihilating them? Long Chen's lips curled. Death isn't frightening. You're making their lives a punishment. In my eyes, it's even crueler than killing them. Our perspectives are different. I've never thought about changing you, so you don't need to waste the effort to try imposing your views on me. The reason I left those women and children alive wasn't because I'm kind, but because I just couldn't do it. If I had forced myself, I would be betraying my own will. After all, they weren't my enemies. They hadn't attacked me. As for those people that have attacked me, I definitely won't have mercy on them when I slaughter them. If people don't like me, if they criticize me, if they have different opinions, I can wave it off, but if someone wants to kill me, then I don't care what reason they have. Whether I kill them with a slash of my saber, a kick of my boot, or a fart of my butt, it's all the same. They still die, so why bother arguing about this? No, I wasn't criticizing you. In truth, I also feel that conning people is even better than killing them. It has more technique to it. Hee, it sounds good. Evelmoon's tone suddenly changed and it laughed. What the fuck, I get it, you're trying to act like you're some good person? While I con others, you laugh inside, but afterward you blame it all on me and look disdainfully upon me, huh? Evil Moon, you really are from a dark race. Your heart is definitely black. Tisich, the reputation of my dark evil dragon race isn't something you can insult. I take back what I said, snorted Evil Moon. So even Evil Moon cared about reputation so much. However, a black heart was a black heart. If you didn't even dare to admit it, then you would definitely be looked down on. Long Chen didn't bother wasting words on Evelmoon's disapproval. Gathering his thoughts, he began flying toward the closest city. It was time to return home. When Long Chen returned to the Shantian Dao sect, he saw that the sect had been rebuilt. All the damage done by the corrupt path's sneak attack had been repaired. Furthermore, the current Shintian Dao sect gave Long Chen a strange feeling. It was like it was a slumbering beast that could unleash terrifying power if awakened. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen. As soon as Long Chen arrived, the disciples guarding the gates bowed reverently. Long Chen greeted those disciples and was just about to go to Crouching Dragon Mountain when Li Tianxuan's voice rang out in his head. He wanted Long Chen to first go see him. "You little fellow, how did you do this?" Li Tianxian immediately pelted Long Chen with questions when he arrived. "What are you talking about?" asked Long Chen. "Don't act dumb. When I went to the ancient races to save you, everything was already over. What I want to know is, how were you able to heavily injure a nether passage expert?" demanded Li Tianxian. Even with his intelligence, he was unable to comprehend how Long Chen had been able to half-destroy the ancient races in the face of a nether passage expert. The news that Long Chen had slain Xiang Yunfei's clone in the eastern Shen city and was being hunted down by a nether passage expert had quickly reached Li Tianxian. At that time, he had been extremely worried for Long Chen. Although Li Tianxian knew that Long Chen was a heaven defier and wouldn't die at the hands of another person, there were no absolutes in this world. Who could guarantee that the heavenly Daos wouldn't use the hands of others to kill him? By the time he received this news, Long Chen had already been being chased for a while. To catch up to them was not possible. So after thinking about it, Li Tianxian had decided to bring the Shen Tower directly to the ancient races. When the Patriarch asked him why he was confident in going to the ancient races, Li Tianxian's explanation was the following. Long Chen could not defeat a nether passage expert, so he had only two options. One was to return to the Shintian Dao sect, leaving that expert unable to do anything to him. The more brazen option was to go to the ancient race's home and make it so the nether passage expert had to be worried about hitting his own people. Then, it would be easier for Long Chen to survive and cause trouble there. The first option was the safest, but Li Tianxian was profoundly aware of Long Chen's character. With his temper, he would definitely make sure to launch a vicious counterattack on whoever was hunting him. So Li Tianxian had been confident that Long Chen would go to the territory of the ancient races and make a huge ruckus. That nether passage expert would be forced to hold back, giving them time to go save him. Li Tianxuan's intelligence had accurately predicted Long Chen's thoughts and actions. The only area his prediction had failed was the conclusion of the events. That was because the conclusion was absolutely outrageous. Long Chen laughed and waved his hand. He brought out the corpse of the sword spine armor dragon. This place was the Shintian Tower space, and the Shintian Tower could easily control the room to fit a giant mountain. Li Tianxian and the Patriarch both jumped in shock. A sword spine armor dragon. Long Chen gave a simple explanation of how he had encountered and subdued the sword spine armor dragon. However, he didn't mention the original devil race. No wonder. The 7-star dragon Tortoise is known to have an unrivaled defense, but their offensive power isn't very great. As for the sword spine armor dragon, it is famed for being a perfect punching bag with monstrous defense. When defense is up against defense, it becomes a battle of attrition. Li Tianxian finally understood how the ancient races had been half destroyed. "Shen Master, are there any movements on the martial heaven continent?" Long Chen was worried about Li Tianxian pressing him for details. Then he might have to tell the dishonorable story of his time as a bandit. So he immediately changed the subject. "There are many movements lately, but it's the matter of the devil slaughter rankings that is the greatest. The images of you and Guoran fighting the devil creatures have been publicly released. Countless experts are saying that the two of you cheated and that you didn't rely on your personal power, so your rankings should be cancelled," sighed Li Tianxian. In the end, there were still some traitors in the Shintian Dao sect. Of the 180,000 disciples that had participated in the Battle of the Devil Abyss, less than 80,000 had returned. But some of those people had betrayed the sect. The images of Guoran unleashing black water had been publicly released, and people said that Guoran was relying on nothing more than a cheat. His own power was garbage, and he wasn't qualified to enter the top 10. As for Long Chen taking first place, it had been done with the help of a mysterious expert from the original devil race. Although his final attack had been truly stunning, It had only had such great effect because those life-star level devil creatures had been unable to defend. It didn't prove that Long Chen really had the ability to kill them all, so it was also cheating. Most importantly, the appearance of an expert from the original devil race caused countless people to point out that Long Chen had to be colluding with the original devil race. Before the truth of that matter was made clear, Long Chen should have his ranking removed. "What's so important about the Devil Slaughter rankings that they want to remove us?" asked Long Chen. He hadn't considered the actual rankings to matter. The Devil Slaughter rankings are far more important than you think. As for why they're important, there are two reasons. One reason is that the heavenly geniuses who can enter the top 10 will be blessed by the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet. Based on their rankings, they will each be bestowed a portion of the Martial Heaven Continent's karmic luck, said Li Tianxian. The Martial Heaven Continent's karmic luck? This was Long Chen's first time hearing such a thing. Li Tianxian nodded. The Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet was personally made by Sovereign Yunshang. A sovereign's wisdom and divine abilities are not things the likes of us can comprehend. In the past, the top 10 heavenly geniuses of the Devil Slaughter rankings were bestowed with the continent's karmic luck after obtaining the recognition of the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet. That allowed their manifestations to fully awaken, and thanks to the favor of the heavenly Daos, their luck would become absolutely heaven-defying. The benefits of this are far greater than you can imagine, which is also why the Alliance head would order you to get into the top 10. The karmic luck you're bestowed won't just help you, but it will also have a secondary effect on the Martial Heaven Alliance. So getting this karmic luck isn't just for you, but also the Shen Dao sect, the Martial Heaven Alliance, and even the entire Righteous Path. It is very important. Aren't the Devil Slaughter rankings under the control of the Alliance head? Asked Long Chen suddenly. Li Tianxian looked at Long Chen with a laughing smile. I know you're thinking of something wrong again. Do you really think the Alliance head would allow embezzlement? Let me tell you then, the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet isn't under anyone's control. The Alliance head can at most communicate with it a bit. As for the rankings and the distribution of karmic luck, it is all done by the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet, and no one can change its decisions. A sovereign is a supreme existence whose power suppresses all. Their power transcends time. You actually thought you could cheat something that a sovereign created? Li Tianxian was practically speechless. Long Chen really had some crazy thoughts to even dare to think of something like this. Then are these people making such a fuss to force the Alliance head to declare her position? They want her to tell this matter to the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet so that it cancels my rankings? Asked Long Chen. No. The Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet was created by a sovereign and is connected to the heavenly Daos. It can overlook this entire world. Even how many devil creatures you killed in the Devil Abyss was accurately kept tracked by it. Who could possibly trick it? The reason they're making so much fuss is to control public opinion. According to legends, when over half the people, or more accurately, when over half of the experts qualified to fight for the Devil Slaughter rankings disagree with your rankings, your name will be removed from the Devil Slaughter rankings, said Li Tianxian somewhat solemnly. What the fuck, there's such a thing. Then aren't I definitely doomed? Long Chen was speechless. What kind of crap was that? Wasn't that the real cheating? Pill Valley, the ancient races, the ancient family alliance, the Shen beasts, they all hated him. Besides, who knew how many people in the Righteous Path wanted him dead? Let alone half, probably over 80% of the experts on the continent hated him. These experts had to have reached the level of power allowing them to compete for the Devil Slaughter rankings. In other words, they had to have reached the soul transformation realm. It had to be known that such elite experts were all under the control of the various large powers. What made Long Chen most speechless was that the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet counted the votes of all the intelligent life forms on the continent. In other words, even the Corrupt Path's voice was counted. Would the Corrupt Path support him? Long Chen almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. Don't be so dejected. Perhaps things will take a turn for the better when the time comes. Furthermore, no matter what, you've at least made your name famous, comforted Li Tianxian. This attempt at comfort was weak and feeble. However, it was the result of helplessness. Long Chen had too many enemies. At this time, they would definitely be against him. Whatever, I'm already used to my bad luck. However, that little fellow Guoran will probably cry. He was looking forward to the reward. He was planning on relying on that to reach the pinnacle of his life, said Long Chen helplessly. Most likely, this would be quite a blow to Guoran. His will was too weak. He probably wouldn't be able to endure such a blow. Whatever, he can handle it. As for me, I can't live off luck. Its power is the most unreliable. According to what you said, there's another reward other than karmic luck? Actually, I don't want to know. In any case, it has nothing to do with me, said Long Chen irritably. Although Long Chen said that he didn't care, he couldn't possibly not care. He had clearly won his ranking through his power, but others could make it not count with just a word. He really had an urge to kill. Don't be too dejected. The Alliance head has been constantly on the move during this time. She has a great deal of influence amongst the senior generation, so she'll help you think of something, said Li Tianxian. You can tell the Alliance head that she doesn't have to waste the effort. My bad luck is heaven-defying, so there's no point, sighed Long Chen. Long Chen was very grateful to this fiery-tempered senior who treated him so incredibly well. That was why he didn't want her to spend so much effort for him. It would be a blow to her when things inevitably failed. Man proposes, but God disposes. Sometimes you still have to make an effort, even if you think it's useless. Every little bit of effort is an increase in the odds of success. What if the 1 in 10,000 chance actually happens? Haha, this 1 in 10,000 chance was well said, laughed Long Chen. That was exactly what he was thinking. His chances were really far below 1%. Saying goodbye to Li Tianxian and the Patriarch, Long Chen returned to Crouching Dragon Mountain. Luck was the least dependable thing. Raising power was more important. That was what was worth depending on. Long Chen returned to Crouching Dragon Mountain through a transportation formation. At this time, the gates to Crouching Dragon Mountain were tightly sealed, and they were covered by its personal formation to prevent others from entering. Other than Long Chen, the rest of the Dragonblood Legion was in seclusion the entire time. No one had come out. Long Chen had just returned when he heard a heaven-shaking roar. He saw 10,000 cold beams of light pierce into the sky. That sharpness gave even him a chill. He saw the Dragonblood warriors wielding sharp blades. They moved like divine dragons, maintaining a grand formation that could transform with the blink of an eye. Long Chen was dazzled. Over 12,000 Dragonblood warriors were moving smoothly, sometimes like a wriggling dragon, sometimes like a grand god. Sometimes, they would transform to become a blooming lotus filling the air. The changes in their formations were so quick that Long Chen felt overwhelmed. Ha, boss has returned. Taste my blade. Guoran, who had been at the front directing everyone, was the first to see Long Chen. Without a delay, his armor lit up and he charged at Long Chen. What, you want to be the boss now? Laughed Long Chen. He also wanted to know how Guoran had improved during this time. He faced Guoran's slash with a fist. Boom. Long Chen was shocked. Guoran's saber didn't budge from his punch. Instead, blood trickled down his fist. Guoran's saber was actually able to injure him. The thing that shocked him the most was that power was surging out of Guoran's saber in endless waves that continuously forced him back. Ha, boss, I am no longer the old Guoran. Summon your divine ring. Otherwise, if I accidentally defeat you, I'll be embarrassed. Laughed Guoran. That pleased expression of his didn't have the slightest embarrassment. Alright then, watch out. Long Chen's divine ring appeared, and green scales covered his body. His divine ring slowly revolved, giving him endless power. At first, Long Chen hadn't dared to use his full power for fear of injuring Guoran, but he found that as he increased his power, Guoran's power also rose. That startled him. He was already using 80% of his power. This was already the most power he had used when fighting Xiang Yunfei, but Guoran was still able to fight evenly against him. Nice, you have some power. Then I won't stand on courtesy. Long Chen was about to unleash his full power, and while Guoran didn't say anything, the distant Dragonblood warriors suddenly started letting out shouts. Stop quickly! Only then did Long Chen notice that those dragon blood warriors were pale and covered in sweat. He immediately understood. You actually managed to transfer energy through space? At this time, he noticed that everyone's armor was glowing ever so slightly. It was very subtle. In an intense battle where everyone was fighting, it definitely wouldn't be noticed. Amazing! Even I was fooled. Well done. Long Chen laughed delightedly. He really had fallen for it, thinking that Guoran had somehow managed to come up with some crazy idea and make something capable of storing energy and supporting him in battle. Long Chen hadn't expected that Guoran had been silently borrowing the power of the entire Dragonblood Legion. Long Chen hadn't sensed it at all. "Ha boss, how is it? Your brothers haven't been training for nothing during this time," laughed Guoran, insufferably arrogant. That pleased expression made others have an urge to slap him. However, Long Chen had no choice but to admit that the Dragonblood Legion's combat power had indeed gone through a heaven-toppling transformation. "It's just regretful that our brothers have been training for the better part of a day and exhausted a large amount of their energy, or today I could have properly exchanged a few blows with boss." Guoran rubbed his fists. In front of Long Chen, Guoran was never able to conceal what he had developed. He always had to show him the new things he had come up with. He couldn't endure not showing him. "Boss." Chen also walked over and greeted Long Chen. At first, this kind of address had sounded a bit forced, but after being with everyone else for longer, he now called Long Chen boss very smoothly. "It's been hard on you." Long Chen patted Chen on the shoulder. He knew Chen was a very prideful person. A large part of the reason why he was working so hard to train the Dragonblood Legion was due to his pride. He wanted to prove his power, to prove that after he joined the Dragonblood Legion, the Dragonblood Legion's power would completely transform. How could Long Chen not see through that thought? It was just that Chen's talent was even greater than he had expected. The battle formations he had just witnessed were absolutely astounding. If the current Dragonblood Legion were to face the Devil Abyss's eruption again, then even without Long Chen, they would be able to easily slaughter those devil creatures. That was the difference. Actually, the connecting runes that Guoran and I designed have many flaws. During the energy transfer, a great deal is wasted. Actually, the majority of the energy is wasted. As for Guoran's armor, although it was reforged with a new formation embedded within, the amount of energy it can endure is limited. So there is even more energy wasted there as well when our brother's energy is transferred to him, said Chen apologetically. Clearly, this was a problem that had been troubling him the entire time. He hadn't been able to solve it. Just being able to connect everyone into a formation is already amazing. At the very least, it'll increase the power of the Dragonblood cross / by 10 times, said Guoran. After being together for so long, Guoran had understood Chen's nature. He was a very serious person who didn't like the slightest flaws in what he did. However, just raising the Dragonblood Legion's power to this extent was enough for everyone to prostrate themselves before him. It had won him all their respect. There's probably no way to avoid some energy waste during the transfer process, unless you can do it like Chu Yao and have our spirits connect. The Wood Spirit Union is capable of perfectly transferring energy, but it's impossible for everyone's spiritual fluctuations to be so close. Long Chen smiled comfortingly. He was already very satisfied with Chen. Formation cultivators were truly terrifying. Wood Spirit Union? Sharing souls? I can't believe I didn't think of that. Chen suddenly let out a startled cry. What? You want to? Guoran also thought of something. The reason the energy transfer is costing so much is because the energy is transferred through the runes without spiritual strength. That's what makes it so clunky. If the energy transfer is supported by spiritual strength, it will definitely save more energy, and then we won't just be limited to having everyone's power gather on Guoran. Everyone will be able to share energy with everyone, exclaimed Chen. But Boss also said that it's impossible to connect people's souls like that. We have 10,000 different souls, said Guoran. That's no problem. Even if we can't carve spiritual runes on hard armor, what about soft armor? Chen's eyes were shining. Guoran clapped his leg, excitedly shouting, "That's right, We can use soft armor for this. However, after a moment of excitement, they sobered up. Guoran said, but carving spiritual runes on soft armor requires the highest level of leather. What kind of pelt is capable of receiving such powerful runes and constant spiritual fluctuations without crumbling? To endure the impact of over 10,000 people's souls connecting, they needed the strongest spiritual runes, and only the strongest of hides could endure those runes without crumbling. Even a half-step nether passage beast's skin wasn't tough enough. Is this good enough? An explosive sound rang out as Long Chen tossed the sword spine armor dragon out of the primal chaos space. A terrifying aura caused everyone to jump and retreat. A sword spine armor dragon? Boss? Did you prepare this for us in advance? Xia Chen's voice was trembling. He actually recognized this terrifying beast. Xia Chen, can you use this hide? On the other hand, Guoran was already used to Long Chen giving him pleasant surprises. The only question was whether this hide was high-level enough or not. It's enough, it's definitely enough. The sword spine armor dragon's strongest aspect is its tough hide. Even quasi-divine items are unable to pierce it. It can definitely endure the impact of everyone's spiritual strength. Xia Chen touched the corpse, his hand quivering from emotion. Then what are you waiting for? Let's get to work. Guoran was even more excited than Xia Chen. Xia Chen pulled back his hand and shook his head. The sword spine armor dragon's hide is good, and I have the spiritual runes we need in my head, but we're lacking many materials. Most of the material I am carrying is for setting up grand formations. I have very few materials for spiritual runes, and their quality isn't high enough. What else do you need? Asked Guoran. Inscription fluid that must be refined from the essence blood of over 10,000 different magical beasts, and those magical beasts must have reached the 11th rank at least. There's also the inscription brush, the powder of the sky crystal stone, the underworld butterfly flower, the soul-subduing paper. Xia Chen listed off dozens of items that people had never heard of. So what you're saying is you need more money? Asked Long Che directly. Yes, and a great deal of money. Right now, we can probably— Long Chen waved his hand, and a mountain of spirit crystals appeared in front of everyone. Some of them rolled down the mountain with tinkling sounds. This mountain of spirit crystals stunned everyone. Boss, did you go plundering again? Asked Guoran. Is this enough? Long Chen ignored Guoran. Yes, it's definitely enough, said Xia Chen excitedly. Then all right. Do your best to strengthen the Dragon Blood Legion. If there's not enough money, just tell me and I'll think of something else. Long Chen left the sword spine armor dragon and the spirit crystals to them. He returned to his own seclusion room. Once Long Chen left, Xia Chen had an urge to cry as he looked at the tall mountain of spirit crystals. The feeling of having a boss was truly excellent. Before this, he had spent his spirit stones stingily, wishing he could split each one in two before spending one. But now he had a rich boss. He was definitely and fully loyal now. He wrote a list of items and gave it to Chen Duoduo. Chen Duoduo was the one in charge of the Dragon Blood Legion's financial affairs, so he would be the one buying the items. Ever since Long Chen had accepted him to the Dragon Blood Legion, Chen Duoduo had become the link between the Huayan sect and the Dragon Blood Legion. He did everything neatly and tidily and had never done anything to cause Long Chen to worry. Back then, Chen Duoduo had made a small business during the disciple trial. When Long Chen had encountered him, he had felt that Chen Duoduo's head was pretty good, so he had accepted him into the Dragon Blood Legion. Now, Chen Duoduo had gone from an unremarkable disciple to a rank 9 celestial and was even well known amongst the Dragon Blood warriors. He had reached a level he had never dreamed of reaching before. After receiving Xia Chen's list, Chen Duoduo immediately set off to purchase the items. Because this was a major affair, Guoran accompanied him to prevent anything unexpected from happening. During the following few days, the Dragon Blood Legion no longer continued their training. They took a few days of rest. Xia Chen was busy planning the sizes of the leather armor and testing the endurance of the leather. Xia Chen chose the best parts of the sword spine armor dragon's hide, parts that were best for the spiritual runes. 3 days later, Guoran and Chen Duo returned, bringing all the materials that Chen had requested. Chen finally experienced the world of the rich and how grand it was. With all the materials that they needed, Chen and Guoran went into seclusion. Guoran was in charge of cutting off the sword spine armor dragon skin and turning it into leather. The sword spine armor dragon was incredibly tough, and cutting it required special tools. Furthermore, those tools would quickly have their runes run out of energy and have to be switched out with newer ones. The blades that they were using were the best possible, and each of them cost over 10 spirit crystals to manufacture. Their runes were added by Chen. If sold, they could go for over 30 spirit crystals. So whether it was forging master or a formation master, they were both money-burning professions. Guoran always had Long Chen's support, and so he never had to worry about money. However, Chen had been alone before and was profoundly aware of how bitter making money was. Now that he didn't need to worry about it and could focus entirely on his work, he felt blessed. Guoran was creating the leather armor, while Chen was adding the spiritual runes. The two of them worked day and night. As for Long Chen, he wasn't slacking either. After returning to his room, he spent all day crazily refining pills. He had already found a faster way to cultivate, so as long as he had enough medicinal pills, he could attempt to attack the Life Star realm. Once he reached the Life Star realm, he could do a few heaven-shaking things. First was subduing the Azure Dragon reverse scale. That was something that Evil Moon had told him he could only do once he reached the Life Star realm. Before that, he would definitely die. The other major affair was undoing the Sovereign's seal on Evil Moon. Evil Moon would be able to unleash its full power at that time. So Long Chen was already getting anxious for the Life Star realm. His enemies were growing stronger and stronger. He was already starting to fight with Nether Passage experts. If he didn't get stronger, he would be doomed. That was because his enemies weren't just powerful, but they were also growing increasingly shameless. As for the heaven-flipping seal, Long Chen had called over the busy Chen and explained the matter of the heaven-flipping seal. Chen had immediately inlaid a formation on the heaven-flipping seal that could allow it to recover faster. However, because it was a divine item, Chen did not have the ability to create a formation allowing it to directly absorb divine energy. After all, Chen could not create divine formations yet. Despite that, the formation he had added allowed the heaven-flipping seal to recover 10 times faster than before. That already satisfied Long Chen. As for Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wan, Gu Yang, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan, they had yet to come out of seclusion. After the last battle, their manifestations had shown signs of awakening, and they were still in seclusion. Rather than being worried that they hadn't come out after all this time, Long Chen was feeling excited. They would only come out quickly if they had failed. Since they hadn't, it meant that there was a good chance they would be able to awaken their manifestations. Long Chen and hundreds of Huolong's split bodies were refining pills together. He bought over 1,000 pill furnaces that were on the level of an ancestral item. That was practically all the stock of the Huayan sect's high-level furnaces. With his spiritual strength working with Huolong's hundreds of split bodies, Long Chen didn't even need to control anything. He just needed to lend the split bodies his spiritual strength. If it was just Huolong refining alone, due to its limited spiritual strength, it would be unable to have so many split bodies refining at once, and the quality of the refined pills would be affected. With Long Chen lending his spiritual strength to it, not only was the quality of the refined pills guaranteed, but the speed had also increased greatly. Over 1,000 pill furnaces were constantly lighting up, with medicinal pills flying out repeatedly. A small mountain of pills quickly piled up. This kind of refining speed would definitely scare normal alchemists to death. However, Long Chen knew that if he wanted to attack the Life Star realm, he would need an unimaginable number of pills for it. With his understanding of the 9-star Hegemon body art, the last 3 heaven stages required a huge amount of energy to break through. Each level was incredibly difficult. Time passed day by day, and 23 days passed in the blink of an eye. Guoran came over to interrupt Long Chen from his refining. He and Guoran left Crouching Dragon Mountain and arrived in the Xintian Plaza. All the Xintian Dao sect's disciples and elders were gathered here today. They were looking nervously at a projection of a divine tablet in the air. This was the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet. There were many names on it corresponding to the Devil Slaughter rankings. Today was the day the rewards were given out for the Devil Slaughter rankings. It had been 99 days since the Battle of the Devil Abyss had ended. All the large powers had been denouncing Long Chen during this time, criticizing him for colluding with the original devil race and using despicable cheating methods to take first place. As for Guoran, he was even more despicable, using some bizarre black water to slay the devil creatures. There was no way he was qualified to be in the top 10. "Have you told this matter to others?" asked Long Chen. "No, I was worried it would affect their mood," whispered Guoran. "Not bad. It seems you've matured quite a bit. It's best that they don't get too emotional over this. If their anger affected their cultivation, it would be bad." "Boss, do we really have no hope?" Even if he had used the black water to kill the devil creatures, that was still his own power. If others had the ability, then they could get some death spirit water to use as well. If they didn't have the ability, then they shouldn't be able to accuse others of cheating when they did it. "Do you want me to tell the truth or lie?" Long Chen looked at Guoran. "Fine. There's no point in believing your own lies. There are so many experts on the Martial Heaven continent, and at least 80% of the soul transformation experts are our enemies. As long as they pray to the divine tablet and say that they don't accept our accomplishments, our rankings will definitely be cancelled." Guoran deflated like a balloon. He didn't even have a desire to hear any words of comfort from Long Chen. "Don't be so dejected, there will be more chances to change your fate. But if missing this chance makes you too dejected, angry, or resentful, you won't be able to grasp the next chance. Just look at your boss. I have never lived off luck. I got my opportunities through adversity. Did I complain? Am I any bit inferior to other experts of the same age?" "You're right, boss. You're the strongest person I've ever seen. No one can defeat you." Guoran nodded sincerely. He had almost blind confidence in Long Chen. "Then let me tell you something. All right, I'm listening. Today, there's no way to solve this problem, so there's no need to think about it. Let time slowly pass, and tomorrow you will find that there's still no way to solve it," sighed Long Chen. "Boss, you're just telling me garbage." Guoran was speechless. "Let me finish. That's why I say, when you encounter something you can't solve, don't worry about it. That will just waste your time. Since your time is precious, you should think about what you want to do. Sometimes acting as a spectator is the wisest decision," said Long Chen. "Boss, I feel like your words are both deep and yet still sound like you're showing off. As expected of my boss, these are words that I would never be able to say in my lifetime." Guoran raised his thumbs at Long Chen, but then he added, "But I didn't really understand anything you said, so can you explain it more simply?" "To sum it up, work hard at messing around." "What does that mean?" "Scram. Scram as far as you can scram. Now, do you understand?" Long Chen suddenly leaned in and roared into Guoran's ear. Guoran hadn't expected this move and almost instinctively summoned his golden battle armor. He flew into the distance. Just as Long Chen and Guoran were messing around with each other, they arrived. All the eyes of the Xintian Dao sect concentrated on them. They all knew that this was a tense time, and no one wanted to disturb them. At first, the profound words that Long Chen had said to comfort Guoran had made them nod in approval, but then their words had changed, causing them to look oddly at the two of them. They didn't know just what kind of expression they should have. Just at that moment, the projection of the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet shook, and a majestic divine aura soared. The final announcement of the Devil Slaughter rankings is coming up. Everyone's hearts immediately clenched. Although Long Chen said that he didn't care, he also stared closely at the tablet. Although this was just a projection and not the true Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet, it gave off a holy and sacred pressure that made everyone revere it. The divine light of the tablet was shining on everyone. A vast aura unfurled, but this aura didn't suppress them, Instead, it was like a sacred baptism that made people have an urge to kneel toward it. This is the aura of Sovereign Yunshang. The Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet really was made by him. Long Chen's heart shook. This sacred aura was something that he would never forget in his lifetime. The image of Sovereign Yunshang reappeared in his mind. Although Long Chen had only managed to meet him through space and time, he had been profoundly won over by his aura. In his heart, only a sovereign was a true expert and someone worthy of his profound respect. But just as everyone was looking at the rankings, two of the names began to shudder. The hearts of everyone in the Shintian Dao sect dropped. Those two names were Long Chen and Guoran. Guoran was pressing both his hands against his heart as if it would jump out if he didn't. Their names were constantly flashing. Right now, all the powers on the Martial Heaven continent were in their own headquarters, looking at this projection. Whether it was the Righteous Path, Corrupt Path, or the other various powers, they all had the right to attend the Battle of the Devil Abyss and split the battle rewards. However, this time, there was a great deal of struggle. Countless people had formed suspicions about Guoran and Long Chen's rankings, and some were directly opposing them. Long Chen especially had countless people cursing him for cheating, even within the Righteous Path. Those people were praying to the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet to have Long Chen's rank removed. Long Chen could only look down on the people doing such a thing. If his name was removed, then the second place Leng Yuan would become first place. Did the people from the Righteous Path really want the Corrupt Path to gain the greatest karmic luck? Their heads were really full of crap. Although Long Chen didn't know exactly what karmic luck was, to tell the truth, he didn't really care about it. Now, he only felt angry at these idiotic people. This was one of the worst parts of the Righteous Path. They focused on bringing everyone else down with them. Sects harming each other was a common occurrence. However, once they faced the Corrupt Path, they immediately turned cowardly. From the Eastern Wasteland to the Central Plains, just how many geniuses of the Corrupt Path had Long Chen killed? He had never hoped for anyone to be grateful to him, but from start to finish, the Righteous Path's people continuously wanted to harm him, constantly slandering him. Anyone would be infuriated, especially someone with his temper. Seeing his and Guoran's names flashing repeatedly, Long Chen's eyes were frosty. The white and black in his eyes actually began to merge as if they were undergoing some kind of transformation. Long Chen. Suddenly, Evil Moon shouted in his mind. "What is it?" asked Long Chen. "Nothing." "What the fuck? Have you gotten dementia from age? Or are you just that bored?" Long Chen was speechless. Just how bored was Evil Moon to play this kind of joke at this time? Long Chen was unaware that following Evil Moon's interruption, the black and white merger of his eyes ceased, and they returned to normal. At this moment, the flashing of the two names began to slow down. Everyone held their breath. This was a critical moment. The results would quickly appear. Guoran was a bit pale, and he was breathing hard as if he was a convict waiting for his sentencing. Life or death, glory or disgrace. Guoran's name began to slowly dim. He collapsed on the ground. "It's over. My name's been removed." However, Guoran's name began to brighten again. "What?" Guoran immediately jumped up and shouted excitedly. A new line appeared behind Guoran's name, 33% against, 56% neutral, 11% supporting. The opposition has failed, and this name is officially accepted. "Haha, opposing me is useless. My name is Dash." Guoran laughed for a short moment before clamping his mouth shut. He saw Long Chen's name growing dimmer and dimmer until it almost vanished. "Boss," exclaimed Guoran. "It's fine. It's good as long as you keep your place." Long Chen smiled slightly. The fact that Guoran had kept his ranking allowed Long Chen to sigh with relief. No matter what, one of them had entered the top 10. At the very least, they had accomplished what Chu Jianying had asked them to do. As for himself, he was indifferent. He had made his preparations for the worst-case scenario. Furthermore, just before Evil Moon had teased him out of boredom, he had decided about what to do. If his name vanished from the Devil Slaughter rankings, he would officially leave the Righteous Path, making his Dragonblood Legion an independent power free of the restrictions of the Righteous Path. Whoever provoked him, he would destroy. However, at the same time as he had thought this, he had also thought of an even more brazen plan. That was to find every person who was slandering him and kill them. At that time, Long Chen had been filled with hatred. However, Evil Moon had distracted him, causing that surge of hatred to vanish. It was replaced with indifferent calm. In the end, Long Chen's name slowly vanished from the Devil Slaughter rankings. It well and truly vanished. The Shintian Dao sect's disciples were infuriated. Bastards, is the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet blind? How did senior apprentice brother Long Chen cheat? They're clearly bullying us. Angry roars rang out due to the disciples being overly emotional. These disciples had been in the battle with Long Chen, and they knew that if it hadn't been for him, none of them would have survived. Seeing his name truly vanish, they were enraged. "Do not blaspheme the sovereign," shouted an elder. The Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet had been created by a sovereign and represented the sovereign's will. For that disciple to say that it was blind was blaspheming the sovereign, which was unacceptable. So what if they're a sovereign? Senior apprentice brother Long Chen clearly relied on his own power to take first place, so how can the tablet decide that his contributions should be nulled just because of a group of despicable people? That's completely unjust. Exactly, senior apprentice brother led us in the battle, and we personally saw everything. How can it do this? Everyone, don't get emotional. This little bit of grievance isn't worth crying over. We slaughtered our way through endless devil creatures and spilled blood without frowning, so how can you start acting up over something like this? If you're going to act like this, you can't tell others I'm your brother when you go out, joked Long Chen with a smile. Although that was what he said, he was extremely moved. They really did support him sincerely. Just like he could accept others insulting him but not his people, they also could accept others insulting them, but not Long Chen. Heavens, look! Senior apprentice brother Long Chen's name has reappeared. Suddenly, someone cried out in shock. He pointed at the tablet with excitement. Everyone looked, only to find that this person was lying. Long Chen's name was gone. They were just about to curse him when they found that Long Chen's name was really back. However, it was so faint that if you didn't look carefully, you wouldn't notice it. It's really back. Long Chen's name was slowly recovering, becoming clearer until it fully returned to its original violet gold color. It was even brighter than it was at the start. When Long Chen's name was shining at full force, a line of words appeared behind it as well, 64% against, 13% neutral, 110% supporting. What? When they saw this line of words, everyone became dumbfounded. Had a problem occurred with the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet? It didn't even know how to count anymore? How could the numbers be so wild? If there were 64% of people against him, then even if the rest supported him, there would only be 36%. With that many people against him, Long Chen's ranking would be erased from the Devil Slaughter rankings. Furthermore, 100% was 100%. Where had 110% come from? Just what was 110% supposed to mean? The Shintian Dao sect's side was unable to comprehend, but a clamor erupted throughout the rest of the world. Had the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet really broken? It's them. Long Chen suddenly realized what was going on. He almost didn't dare to believe it. It's the sisters from the spirit world. They're supporting us. Guoran also cried out excitedly. There was no such expression as 110% in the martial heaven continent, but there was in the spirit world. It represented a pinnacle. Back in the spirit world, Long Chen and the others had conversed with the spirit race's people. They had heard them use this term. One of their common phrases was, "With my 110% gratitude, I bless you in the name of the life god tree to have a long life, happiness, luck, and to be free from sorrow and pain." This was part of their prayer. Long Chen and the others had heard it many times, so they naturally had remembered this strange phrase of 110%. But the spirit world isn't part of the martial heaven continent. How can they participate in the Devil Slaughter rankings? Xia Chen interjected. I don't know either. But Sovereign Yunshang had a deep connection with the spirit world. Clearly, the support of the spirit world is enough to determine things. Even if everyone in the martial heaven continent was against me, they wouldn't be able to affect me. Hee hee, interesting, those hopping clowns messed around for so long, so slapping them in the face is truly satisfying. I wonder whether any of them have coughed up blood and fainted? Long Chen had a faint, petty smile, rejoicing in his enemy's misfortune. This sudden turnaround was truly refreshing. Just at that moment, the projection of the Devil Slaughter divine tablet shattered. The world shook, and the clouds began congregating over the Shen-Tian Dao sect from every direction. Clouds surged over, forming two giant lotus-shaped clouds that revolved in the sky. As they spun, divine light appeared in the air, gathering within the lotus flowers. The light also illuminated the Shen-Tian Dao sect. Everyone felt their whole bodies relax under that divine light. The trees and vegetation that were newly planted within the Shen-Tian Dao sect began to rapidly grow. Even the precious spirit medicines growing in the sect matured quickly. The entire Shen-Tian Dao sect became a misty wonderland. The ancestral statue of the sect seemed to be nourished by some kind of energy, and its divine splendor increased. The support of karmic luck. This is the result of even more karmic luck coming to the sect. My Shen-Tian Dao sect has truly risen. The elders cried tears of emotion. They had been guarding the Shen-Tian Dao sect for hundreds or even thousands of years. Even when the Shen-Tian Dao sect was in decline, they didn't think of leaving. In their eyes, the Shen-Tian Dao sect was their home. Whether it was rich or poor, it was their home. Hence, they were incomparably emotional. I never thought that I would get to see the Shen-Tian Dao sect's revival in my lifetime. I can die without regret now. The Patriarch stood within the Shen-Tian Tower, looking at the shining ancestral statue and feeling the thriving vitality thrumming through the sect. He also couldn't help but cry. Each generation's Shen master's greatest hope had been for the Shen-Tian Dao sect to be restored to its former glory while it was in their hands. It was unknown how many amazing and ambitious Shen masters had existed throughout history, but no matter how hard they worked, they never saw the slightest hope even when they died. Compared to his predecessors, the Patriarch was very fortunate. He had managed to be in this era and personally witnessed the Shen-Tian Dao sect's restoration. Master, everything will only become better. This is just a start. I'm sure the Shen-Tian Dao sect's future accomplishments will surpass anything in history, said Li Tianxian. He looked from the two giant lotus flowers to Long Chen, who was standing with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression calm. I'm profiting from you. I was lucky to have such an amazing apprentice like you. The Patriarch sighed. While he had been in charge, he had done everything carefully. Although he had not made any mistakes, he had not had any accomplishments either. He had labored for nothing. Everything happening in front of him had nothing to do with him. This was the result of Li Tianxuan's direction. Your luck was good, but mine is even better. I could bet everything on Long Chen, a good disciple. It was all thanks to Long Chen. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens, but we are just witnesses to this story. Being witnesses is also something to be thankful for. Even when we die, we can be proud when we face our ancestors, said Li Tianxian, smiling proudly. Perhaps in this entire world, only Li Tianxian would have the daring to leave a heavenly fire in his sect. It was due to that daring that the Shen-Tian Dao sect had reached its current glory. More and more divine light gathered. Even the ordinary disciples were able to feel some kind of indescribable energy within the air. That was karmic luck, the most ephemeral existence within heaven and earth. Some people believed it, and some people didn't. No one was even able to bring out proof of its existence. However, in the face of this divine light, everyone felt a kind of sacred blessing silently coming over them. They felt at peace and happy as if the world was looking after them. We're benefiting from senior apprentice brother Long Chen. As the karmic luck gathers, a portion of it leaks, blessing all of us. The entire Shen-Tian Dao sect is also being infected by his karmic luck. It is now impossible to stop us from rising, said Wang Zhen emotionally. Wang Zhen, Hua Shiyu, and Zhao Ziyan had all joined the sect with Long Chen. They had been there at the start, fighting in a competition, all the way to fighting against sea demons in the Eastern Sea. Now, they had reached their current level, which was also thanks to Long Chen. Although they weren't warriors of the Dragonblood Legion, the Shen Dao sect had relied on Long Chen to soar. If the Shen Dao sect hadn't risen, they wouldn't have been able to inherit its karmic luck to become Empyreans. Now, they had become pillars of the Shen Dao sect. Hua Xiyu had even become the leader of the Shen Dao sect's disciples. Furthermore, Li Tianxian had said that he might very likely groom her as his successor. As for Long Chen and the Dragonblood Legion, everyone was already starting to sense that the shallow pond that was the Shen Dao sect was no longer able to hold them. An incense stick's worth of time later, enough divine light had gathered that the lotus above Guoran slowly bloomed. A foot-long sphere of light fell from it. It shone with all the colors of the rainbow. That light was sacred and divine. Everyone sensed a powerful blessing energy as soon as it appeared. This is karmic luck. Once he absorbs it, it's said that even if he just randomly bends down and digs, he'll be able to dig up a treasure. Even wanting to die will become difficult for him. People looked enviously at that sphere. That was a treasure you couldn't buy no matter how much money you had. At this time, Long Chen's lotus also bloomed. A rainbow pillar of light shot down from the sky. A huge whirlpool of auspicious clouds enveloped the Shen Dao sect. A 3-meter sphere of light appeared in people's eyes once the lotus bloomed. That sphere had 9 dragon images that were moving within it. As they moved, the whirlpool in the sky followed it. It formed a mysterious cycle, and people felt like they could hear a dragon cry from it. The ultimate karmic luck, 9 dragons roar at the heavens. The Patriarch couldn't help opening his mouth. Even this kind of legendary thing had appeared. Ha come. Guoran laughed because at this moment, his light sphere slowly flowered toward him. It stopped in front of him, and as he reached out to grab it, he felt immense blessing energy within. Wait a moment. Long Chen suddenly stopped Guoran from absorbing it. What? Asked Guoran. Take this one. I'll take yours. Long Chen suddenly walked over with his giant light sphere and handed it to Guoran. This action left everyone dumbfounded. Was Long Chen really switching with Guoran? Boss, you can't, exclaimed Guoran. Shut up. This is an order. Long Chen didn't give Guoran any chance to argue. He grabbed his light sphere and tossed the other one to him. In truth, Long Chen was also extremely moved by this sphere of karmic luck. Perhaps if he absorbed it, he wouldn't be so unlucky in the future. However, he had a premonition that his bad luck stemmed from the 9-star hegemon body art. Perhaps this karmic luck could support him for a while, but it wouldn't last for long. It was also possible that his bad luck would cancel out this karmic luck, meaning his luck wouldn't be good or bad in the future. That would be boring and a waste of such a good opportunity. Boss, hurry up and absorb it. In truth, in the entire Dragonblood Legion, you're the one I'm worried about the most. You aren't strong, but you like to show off so much. Even if you aren't strong enough to show off, you force yourself to show off. If that continues, you'll be killed sooner or later. I'm giving you better karmic luck so I can stop worrying so much about you, comforted Long Chen. Actually, Guoran was already very powerful, and no one could replace his position in the Dragonblood Legion. He was the core of the Legion in battle. Without Guoran, the entire Dragonblood Legion would lose its direction. An upgrade in Guoran was an upgrade to the entire Dragonblood Legion's safety. Guoran was already tearing up, unable to say anything. All the experts were also extremely moved. This generosity and fierce loyalty to his brothers in the Dragonblood Legion were something worthy of their worship. Long Chen patted Guoran on the shoulder. Guoran nodded and tugged with his hands. That giant light sphere slowly enveloped him, and endless divine light flowed down into him. Rainbow light began shining out of Guoran. A kind of sacred aura appeared. Just by standing there, it felt like the entire world was supporting him. He was like a god. Well, if he could just hold back his wretched expression a bit, he would appear more like one. As Guoran was immersed in that divine light, Long Chen brought the light sphere he had taken from him to Xiachen. Boss? Xiachen hastily shook his head. He knew what Long Chen was planning. He was extremely moved, but he couldn't accept. Long Chen's lovers were still in seclusion, and such a treasure should be left to them, not him. Long Chen didn't give Xia Chen a chance to refuse. He directly smashed the light sphere onto Xia Chen's body. It exploded and divine light erupted. Your physical body is too weak, so having more karmic luck means better survivability. That's the only way you can properly raise the entire Dragonblood Legion's power, so don't get all misty-eyed, said Long Chen impatiently. Xia Chen was a formation cultivator who didn't face enemies head-on. In a 1-against-1, any member of the Dragonblood Legion could easily fight across realms. Killing any life star expert was no problem. However, Xia Chen was different. By himself and without prearranged formations, he had practically no combat power. Let alone fighting across realms, if others managed to get close to him, even if it was just someone at Foundation Forging, they would pose a fatal threat to him. That was a fatal weakness of formation cultivators. Xia Chen was upgrading the Dragonblood Legion's collective power, but if they didn't upgrade Xia Chen as well, he might be the first sacrifice in their next battle, especially if they encountered assassins from the Bloodkill Hall. Every little bit of karmic luck was an increased chance of him surviving. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wan, and the others were already skilled enough in protecting themselves. In comparison, Xia Chen needed it far more. Boss, consider this life of mine yours. Xia Chen could not describe how grateful he was. He began to absorb the divine light, but then his expression suddenly changed. I can't absorb it. Xia Chen had activated his heavenly Dao manifestation but was still unable to absorb this rainbow divine light. Furthermore, the rainbow light was starting to show signs of dissipating. Xia Chen panicked. What's going on? All the Xintian Dao sect's disciples let out startled cries. Why was it that Guoran could absorb Long Chen's blessing, but Xia Chen couldn't absorb Guoran's blessing? Long Chen, this blessing comes from the Devil's Slaughter Divine Tablet. Only the top 10 can absorb it. People who aren't in the top 10 haven't won the approval of the Heavenly Daos, and so they can't absorb it. Li Tianxuan's voice rang out. Li Tianxian had suddenly recalled that there seemed to be such a legend. However, this legend had never been confirmed because in all of history, there had never appeared a case of someone giving their karmic luck to someone else. This legend had mostly been forgotten by everyone. He had only thought of it when he saw that Xia Chen was unable to absorb the rainbow light. Boss, quickly absorb it. Otherwise, it's going to disappear, shouted Xia Chen. The rainbow light was still revolving around him, but it had not recognized him and was beginning to leave. Since it's mine, I can give it to whoever I want. Who said the Heavenly Daos could deny me? Long Chen smiled coldly. The Heavenly Daos were once more interfering. Long Chen's divine ring suddenly appeared. Divine pressure crashed down. The world froze. A 5-point star was present within the divine ring, forcibly locking in the rainbow light that was about to dissipate and beginning to gather it up. Rumble! Suddenly, heavenly pressure erupted and the will of the Heavenly Daos descended. The heavens were enraged. That karmic luck was a portion of the Heavenly Daos will, and Long Chen was forcibly suppressing it. That instantly angered the Heavenly Daos. Long Chen, you can't go against the Heavenly Daos. You dash, shouted the Patriarch. However, his warning was cut off by Li Tianxian. Long Chen has his own methods. Let him do as he pleases. The explosive rumbling continued to erupt through the void. Heavenly might crashed down, and the color of the world changed. Everyone's expressions changed. In the face of this heavenly might, terror involuntarily burst out of the depths of their souls. Boss, this is heavenly fury. Xia Chen looked in shock at this phenomenon. It's fine. The heavens like to pout. Ignore it. Just absorb it, said Long Chen. Wasn't it just heavenly fury? It wasn't as if that hadn't happened before. As long as it didn't let loose heavenly tribulation, Long Chen didn't care if the heavens were angered. In any case, when his tribulation came, the heavens wouldn't go easy on him. His divine ring revolved, unleashing immense power that resisted the heavenly might. The 5-point star within it emitted blinding light that suppressed the karmic luck. In the end, it was freed from the restrictions of the heavenly Daos and began to be absorbed by Chen. As expected of a heaven defier. Even in the face of the heavenly Daos, he has to make sure to tear off a bite. Li Tianxian could only watch silently as he witnessed Long Chen going against the heavenly Daos. All the experts present became drenched in sweat as they saw Long Chen facing heavenly might. His divine ring was clashing against that heavenly might, and the resulting forces caused their souls to feel like they might be crushed. In the face of those two wills, they felt incredibly small. Even the heavenly Daos are unable to suppress senior apprentice brother Long Chen. Senior apprentice brother is defying the heavens. The disciples looked at Long Chen with zealotry. The rainbow light around Chen slowly vanished as the blessing of the heavenly Daos had been absorbed by him. The heavenly might also faded slowly once he finished absorbing it. Things returned to calm. Long Chen put away his divine ring. More and more, he felt that his decision had been correct. That so-called blessing of the heavenly Daos would not be able to bless him. His 9-star Hegemon body art went directly against the heavenly Dao, so how could the heavenly Daos possibly bless him? If they didn't curse him, that would already be pretty good. He felt that his decision to leave this heavenly Dao blessing to Guoran and Chen had been the wisest decision. Otherwise, it would have been wasted. Boss, the heavenly Daos will remember this disrespect. I don't feel very safe, said Chen worriedly. Chen was a normal cultivator. In his eyes, Long Chen's methods were completely against the natural order of the world. It's fine, you'll get used to it. Going against the heavenly Daos is the common state of the Dragon Blood Legion. As for not feeling safe, there's no need to feel that way. I often go against the heavenly Daos, so I'm familiar with it. The heavenly Daos are not human, but a set of rules. They have no emotion and they don't remember enmities, comforted Long Chen. Long Chen had previously felt hatred for the heavenly Daos. But now he no longer hated them. In his eyes, the heavenly Daos were just tools for carrying out the laws of the world. They weren't human, so why hate them? Each time he underwent tribulation, he was locked onto by the will of the heavenly Daos. He had gradually managed to touch many of the secrets of the heavenly Daos, which was why he dared to say that brazenly snatching this karmic luck would not draw heavenly retribution. The heavenly Daos had no emotion. It was only when he took the initiative to break the rules of the heavenly Daos that heavenly retribution would come for him. However, this bit of karmic luck hadn't been given to him by the heavenly Daos, but by the Devil Slaughter divine tablet. The heavenly Daos had no authority to take it back. To put it frankly, this blessing of karmic luck had been taken from the heavenly Daos by the Devil Slaughter divine tablet and then distributed to Long Chen and the others. It already belonged to them. For Long Chen to help Chen absorb it would only cause the heavenly Daos to express their fury. They wouldn't unleash a lightning tribulation to kill him. The heavenly Daos had their own rules that they were restricted by. As long as he didn't touch those rules, they wouldn't be able to cause trouble for him. It was only during his tribulations that he had no other methods. Each time he advanced, he would pose an even greater threat to the heavenly Daos. The heavenly Daos would naturally do everything they could to destroy him. Guoran, what are you doing? After comforting Chen, Long Chen suddenly noticed that Guoran, who had already finished absorbing his karmic luck, was squatting down and digging up one of the bricks beneath him. Guoran didn't reply. He continued digging. After a moment, he managed to dig up a fist-sized copper fragment from the ground. There was still some faint divine aura coming from it. A fragment of a divine item? What's going on? It should be the result of that large battle before. Some divine items were shattered then. This fragment's runes have already vanished along with its divine power, so it seemed no one sensed it, said Li Tianxian after a moment of thought. Ha ha. Guoran suddenly began to laugh crazily as he held that fragment. I'm rich, I'm rich. Everyone looked at him bizarrely. Wasn't it just a fragment of a quasi-divine item? Although it was valuable, it wasn't enough to make Guoran so crazy. Was there something special about the fragment? The legends are true, huh? Laughed Guoran. What legends? Asked Long Chen. The legends that say those with karmic luck can just randomly dig in the ground and pull out treasures. Hiya. Guoran was in the midst of crazily laughing when he was kicked in the butt by Long Chen and sent flying. When are you going to grow up a bit? Raged Long Chen. Guoran had actually started digging just to test his new luck. Li Tianxian and the Patriarch's expressions were a bit odd, but part of that was shock. Guoran's actions might have been a bit crazy, but he had just proven how amazing this blessing was. He had randomly dug up a brick and actually found a fragment of a divine item that had been long since forgotten there. That kind of luck was truly heaven-defying. Hey, Guoran, you have to calm down. Not every brick will have a treasure under it. After being kicked away by Long Chen, Guoran didn't get angry. Instead, he knelt down and began to continue pulling up bricks. In the end, it was Xia Chen who had to drag him away, refusing to let him continue with such embarrassing actions. Long Chen was also speechless. This little fellow's head was definitely not the same as a normal person's. No matter how good his luck was, he couldn't play around like this. Fortunately, Xia Chen dragged him away, otherwise, that little fellow would probably test his luck in all kinds of crazy and unreliable ways. His intelligence had already flown the coop. It probably wouldn't return for at least a few days. Long Chen walked into the Xiantian Tower. He knew that the Patriarch and Li Tianxian would want to speak with him. Long Chen, your first place ranking this time has won the Righteous Path a huge amount of karmic luck. The Righteous Path will be looked after by the heavenly Daos even more now, praised the Patriarch. Long Chen bitterly smiled. I bet a few people will be angrily smashing their furniture and fuming right now. Not all the Righteous Path will be so grateful to me. Long Chen couldn't help feeling a bit angry when he said this. For there to be a lot of people opposing his ranking, a large number of experts from the Righteous Path had to have also participated. He had won karmic luck for the Righteous Path. Even after doing everything they could to stop him, they still ended up benefiting. Long Chen was naturally dissatisfied. There are always fools everywhere. Ignore them. The Patriarch waved his hand. However, there was never any power with as many idiots as the Righteous Path, said Long Chen. There's no way around it. The Righteous Path has too many sections. All of them care mostly about themselves, resulting in them fighting and scheming amongst themselves, sighed the Patriarch. In truth, the largest power in this world was the Righteous Path. Otherwise, the Martial Heaven Alliance wouldn't possess such power or daring. Regretfully, the Righteous Path was not united. It was like a plate of sand. Although there was the Martial Heaven Alliance controlling it, the sects all fought amongst each other, constantly stabbing each other in the back. Moreover, some sects were not truly part of the Righteous Path. It was unknown exactly how many of them were actually being controlled by Pill Valley. Even someone like Chu Jianying was temporarily unable to do anything about that. Fortunately, the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet had somehow accepted even the support of the spirit world, allowing them to reverse the tides. Shen Master, can I ask what relationship Sovereign Yun Shang had with the spirit world? Asked Long Chen. Li Tianxian pondered Long Chen's question for a moment. In the end, he decided to tell Long Chen a secret relating to the spirit world and the Martial Heaven continent. Under the leadership of a mighty sovereign, the Martial Heaven continent had been very close allies with the spirit world. However, once the sovereign's time passed and the next dark era descended, the relationship between the two was severed. This fracture wasn't just because the spirit world hadn't supported the Martial Heaven continent, but because the Martial Heaven continent had entered a very chaotic state after the Dark Era. The sovereign had disappeared, and various large powers had risen. Without a sovereign to suppress things, the continent had entered a long and chaotic period. It was at that time that the spirit world's attempts at communication repeatedly failed, and they were killed as traitors. The spirit world had no choice but to seal the channel connecting it to the continent, cutting off their ties to the human race. However, there were still rumors that the spirit world and the Martial Heaven continent's alliance had been started by Sovereign Yun Shang. Furthermore, it was said that Sovereign Yun Shang had had a close relationship with the ruler of the spirit world of that time. When Li Tianxian mentioned that, he smiled faintly. Rumor is that Sovereign Yun Shang was exceptionally handsome, a dragon amongst men. As for the ruler of the spirit world back then, she was like a heavenly fairy whose beauty enraptured all living things. Many people guessed that their relationship was not ordinary. However, no one knows the details. Sovereign Yun Shang is gone, and there's no news about that ruler. Shen Master, how could the sovereigns have vanished? Did they all die? Long Chen had always been suspicious about this. He had already seen two sovereigns. One was Sovereign Yun Shang, while the other was the sovereign that had created the sovereign blood seal on Devil Spirit Mountain. However, he had only gotten a quick look at that sovereign creating the sovereign blood seal on Devil Spirit Mountain. He hadn't actually gotten a chance to talk to him. However, he could still sense that will that superseded the heavens. How could such a person just vanish? Had they run out of longevity? If their longevity ran out, then why didn't they have a tomb? They didn't even have any memorials. This is a question that no one in the world can answer. It has always been a riddle of this world. Some people say that the sovereigns have died, that they died against terrifying existences while defending the continent. Some also say the sovereigns haven't died, and they are in some place silently protecting this world. The others say that the sovereigns weren't human, and that they were transcended gods. When the martial heaven continent is in danger of being destroyed, they will be reborn. When the world is too peaceful, they will enter a new cycle of reincarnation, waiting for their time to be reborn. To sum up, there are many theories, but there is only one thing that can be said for sure. Sovereigns are the most supreme existences more worthy of reverence than even gods. However, the world has become chaotic, and people's eyes have gradually been clouded by the lure of power. People are growing more and more selfish as well as darker. Their intelligence has been buried. That's why no matter where you go, you'll always run into all kinds of fools, said Li Tianxian. Suddenly Li Tianxian asked, do you know why is it that the corrupt path, the Xian beasts, the ancient races, and the others all bully the humans of the righteous path? I don't. Long Chen shook his head. It's because the past 5 sovereigns were born amongst the humans of the righteous path. Have you ever heard of the saying, 5 sovereigns, 3 emperors? Long Chen shook his head again. The 5 sovereigns you know, but the 3 emperors you might not. The 3 emperors are the corrupt emperor, Pring emperor, and blood emperor. They came from the corrupt path, the Xian beasts, and the ancient family alliance. They were also amazing experts. The only regretful thing is that just as they were rising, they were suppressed by the righteous path's humans. When a sovereign rose amongst them, the sovereign crushed the otherwise unrivaled emperors. In the end, they were defeated. The sovereigns were existences that we cannot imagine. Although the 3 emperors were defeated, they were the only existences in our world that were qualified to challenge the 5 sovereigns. Moreover, although they were defeated, unlike the sovereigns, they all have their own descendants. So, Long Chen, you have to be careful. With the great era coming, the descendants of the 3 emperors who have been in seclusion for countless years will very likely come out. As long as their bloodline hasn't run out, they will once more be amazing experts. Either they have been wiped out, meaning that they won't appear, or if they do appear, it will be followed by a tempest of blood. As for you, you are already mortal enemies with those 3 powers. You should be careful, warned Li Tianxian gravely. Existences that can challenge a sovereign? Long Chen sucked in a cold gasp of air. He hadn't expected to learn of 3 families with such a terrifying history. However, he still didn't quite understand. The sovereigns had completely dominated their era. Why hadn't they pulled up these enemies by their roots? If they weren't wiped out, they would have participated in the fight for karmic luck in the Devil Abyss, would they not? Asked Long Chen. You're thinking about it too simply. The martial heaven continent is far more complicated than you imagine. The karmic luck that was distributed to you is a tiny fraction when compared to the martial heaven continent as a whole. There are some powers that are innately condensations of karmic luck. Well, talking about such things might be too early for you, so it's meaningless. All I want to say is that you should be careful. You are standing at the center of the storm. I don't even know how many eyes are staring at you. If you let your guard down in the slightest, they will pounce like a viper. I understand. But don't worry, I am not planning on going to the ancient races after this. Actually, that sword spine armor dragon was something I was saving for Heavenly Fate Island. But those ancient races forced me to give it to them as a gift. I've seen idiots, but never before have I seen such idiocy, said Long Chen hatefully. Right now, what he wanted the most was to eliminate Heavenly Fate Island. Their scheming and calculating had almost destroyed the Dragonblood Legion. He didn't have a way to get vengeance yet, but that was just temporary. Just as he was calculating the interest for this debt, the ancient races ruined his plans. However, he supposed that he hadn't lost out by that much. After all, he had gained 90 divine items in the form of Xiang Yunfei's spears, as well as around 30 billion spirit crystals. Other than that, he had also managed to take back the sword spine armor dragon's corpse. He had managed to vent and make some money. Heavenly Fate Island's thinking is hard to understand. According to reason, they should not be acting so foolishly. I can't understand it, but perhaps they have some greater scheme. Li Tianxian shook his head. Li Tianxian knew that Long Chen was a heaven defier, and that Heavenly Fate Island would not dare to directly calculate anything about him. That would lead to instant death. Since that was the case, they should know that even if Long Chen wasn't a heaven defier, he was someone intricately linked with immense karma. Why did they have to continue targeting him? Were they unafraid of the backlash from the heavenly Daos? To calculate anything about Long Chen was impossible, and if they were to instead try calculating anything about the Dragonblood Legion, they would find it almost impossible. After all, the Dragonblood Legion was tightly connected to Long Chen. Their only method would be a roundabout calculation of the continent's karmic luck, changes in sex, as well as a few disciples' fates. That took an unimaginable amount of effort and resources. Furthermore, because it was not a direct calculation, it was all too easy for them to come to the wrong conclusion. Li Tianxian could not understand why they wanted Long Chen dead so badly. In his eyes, this was incurably foolish. No matter what they do, this enmity has already been set in stone. They almost destroyed us, so there's no way I'll let them off. I wasn't able to use the sword spine armor dragon, but that's all right. Even 10 years isn't too late for revenge. Li Tianxian nodded inside. Heavenly Fate Island had perhaps played with fire this time. To have Long Chen set his gaze on them, they might be out of luck. Heavenly Fate Island's experts weren't very powerful. They relied on reading the lines of fate, making it so no one dared to provoke them. If any of their enemies were to target them, they would be able to find out immediately. Heavenly Fate Island had many allies, and telling them to target their enemy was easy, particularly since they could expose that enemy's weaknesses. However, Long Chen was different. Long Chen could not be read by Heavenly Fate Island. I don't think you should go into seclusion for the next few days. If my guess isn't wrong, the Alliance head will quickly come. I'm already here. Before Li Tianxian could finish speaking, Chu Jianying's voice rang out. She appeared within the Xiantian Tower. Li Tianxian and the Patriarch hastily stood up to bow, but Chu Jianying waved her hand dismissively. We're already so familiar with each other, so there's no need to waste the effort. Long Chen, you have some skill. You've won me some face. Chu Jianying smiled brightly. This time, not only had Long Chen and Guoran managed to keep their rankings, but the support of the spirit world had been a slap in their enemies' faces. During the past few days, Chu Jianying hadn't come to see Long Chen because she hadn't had the face to. In the face of Pill Valley, the ancient races, the Xian beasts, the corrupt path, the ancient family alliance, the Bloodkill Hall, and various other powers instigating trouble, as well as betrayers in her very own Martial Heaven alliance, she had lost hope when it came to the Devil Slaughter rankings. However, unexpectedly, there had been a final reversal. That final 110% had been recognized by a few members of the senior generation. Only once they told others did they understand that the Devil Slaughter Divine Tablet actually included the spirit world in its calculations of a person's support. As a result, all those powers working against them had worked for nothing. This slap had been very resounding. Chu Jianying's smile had threatened to split her face. It's too bad that the old ghost hasn't woken up, or he'd definitely be happy to see you do so well. Chu Jianying smiled. However, that smile also contained worry. The old man had been in seclusion for several months now. He should have woken up, but there was still no news from him. Putting aside that old ghost, you should pack up. Come with me to the central Xin region. I have an enormous benefit to give you. Chu Jianying smiled mysteriously. Li Tianxian and the Patriarch's eyes brightened. While they didn't say anything, they had smiles of anticipation. An enormous benefit? How enormous? Exclaimed Long Chen. What's with all the talking? What do you not want it? It's all right, I can give it to someone else, Chu Jianying scolded laughingly. The Alliance Head's benefits are truly immense. If you can obtain it, it would be enough to change your life. However, the Alliance Head can only give you a chance. Whether or not you can obtain it is up to your own power and luck, said the Patriarch. He and Li Tianxian clearly knew what benefit Chu Jianying was talking about, but they didn't say what it was. I was just joking. As long as the Alliance Head is offering it to me, whether it's good or bad, I would take it. Who asked us to have such a good relationship? Laughed Long Chen. Although he didn't know what it was, he knew it was definitely not ordinary. All right, then we should go quickly. Clearly, Chu Jianying was very busy and didn't have the time to talk so much. Please give me some time. I'll arrange my affairs, said Long Chen. Why does it sound like you're busier than me? Hurry up, said Chu Jianying speechlessly. Long Chen vanished like a wisp of smoke. After he left, Li Tianxian said, Alliance Head, for Long Chen to go to the central Xian region now will probably cause huge waves. Are you prepared? Why do I have to prepare? With that scoundrel present, no preparations would be enough. I can't even be bothered to prepare anything. Let him do as he pleases. He has too many variables on him for me to plan anything. He's a disciple of the Martial Heaven Alliance, as well as a favorite of that old ghost. As long as I still draw breath, I won't let him suffer. Alliance Head, you've misunderstood. To tell the truth, I'm not worried about Long Chen at all. What I'm worried about is the ruckus that will erupt in the central Xian region when he goes there. At that time, you might be caught off guard. It can't be that bad. It's just accepting an inheritance. Furthermore, whether or not he'll obtain it is still unknown. What kind of ruckus can he cause? Chu Jianying started. Li Tianxian immediately understood that Chu Jianying hadn't been with Long Chen long enough to see through the clues that Long Chen was a heaven defier. However, Long Chen's identity as a heaven defier was taboo and could not be exposed. Li Tianxian could only tactfully say, based on my experience of the past few years of knowing Long Chen, wherever he goes will not stay peaceful for long. Even if he doesn't go looking for trouble, trouble will go looking for him. You should prepare yourself. Your words are reasonable. This little fellow is a big troublemaker. I should make some preparations. Chu Jianying nodded. Li Tianxian then warned Chu Jianying about how Long Chen had conned the ancient races. By the end, Chu Jianying was shaking with laughter. Even now, she had yet to receive any news of the ancient races gathering. In other words, the ancient races were preparing to simply accept this defeat. Xiang Yunfei's clone had been killed by Long Chen because he had challenged Long Chen. Long Chen had defeated him openly with countless witnesses, so no one could find fault with him over this. As for the ancient races, they had actually prepared a trap, even used a nether passage expert to fight a soul transformation expert. The expert had worn a mask to prevent his identity. It was already an incredibly shameless thing. Long Chen had killed his way into his lair and summoned the sword spine armor dragon, using the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That was also completely reasonable. If the ancient races dared to demand justice for this in front of her, Chu Jianying would directly slap them. It was only when Li Tianxian mentioned Heavenly Fate Island that Chu Jianying's expression sank slightly. How has Heavenly Fate Island become like this? Are the rumors really true? Has the old island master Dao Xingyan already died? Wondered Chu Jianying. Although nether passage experts had comprehended life and death, they had not fully transcended life and death, and their longevity still had a limit. It was just that their lifespan was far greater compared to other experts. Although Heavenly Fate Island's master had reached his position even earlier than seniors like Chu Jianying, based on his remaining longevity, he shouldn't have died. Heavenly Fate Island spends all day peering into the heavens. Their longevity is not set in stone. They will often touch on certain taboo topics, which will cause their longevity to decrease. No one can say anything for sure about this, said Li Tianxian. Heavenly Fate Island was a very special existence. No matter how strong someone was, if they touched the heavens' taboos, they would be destroyed overnight. The experts of Heavenly Fate Island were madmen who towed that line to see the secrets that others couldn't see. It was all too easy for them to accidentally lose their lives. Heavenly Fate Island is a bit difficult to deal with. Let's set this matter aside for now, said Chu Jianying. She still had far too many things to do and had no time to find justice for Long Chen over this. Alliance head, I'm not saying you should go to them. I'm saying that they've already become mortal enemies with Long Chen. Long Chen won't simply swallow his anger over this, warned Li Tianxian. Yes, I understand. The worst case is that I have to clean up after him again. Hopefully, that old ghost will wake up soon, or I'm going to be exhausted by this brat. Chu Jianying rubbed her head as she felt a headache coming on. She almost regretted coming here now. As the three of them were speaking, Long Chen finally returned. He had given the 90 bone spears to Guoran, telling him to distribute them amongst the brothers who favored long weapons. These bone spears were all on the level of quasi-divine items, while their hardness was even comparable to half-step divine items. They were absolute treasures. Long Chen had already erased any spiritual imprint Xiang Yunfei had left behind with his divine thunder force. They could be used freely by anyone now. To get used to them would definitely take some time. The item spirits inside had already been cowed by Evil Moon, so the Dragon Blood warriors could place their own spiritual marks without worrying about them fighting back. Only after arranging that did Long Chen leave with Evil Moon to the central Xian region. Chu Jianying's flying boat flew quickly. When they passed a barren land, Long Chen couldn't help feeling emotional. That had been the location of one of the 7 danger zones, the heaven-devouring forest. This particular part of it had been scorched black by his flames. Even after this long, it was still black. Back then, he had been chased down by Pill Valley and had relied on instigating a fight between the heaven-devouring forest and Pill Valley to escape. Thinking about that made him sigh. The Eastern Xian region's people should thank you. The heaven-devouring forest was originally blocking their path to the central Xian region. Now that it's gone, they can travel the continent more freely. Many people with weaker cultivation bases are now able to take a look at the central Xian region, said Chu Jianying with a smile. Regretfully, while there might be many people thankful to me, even more want me to die right now. Long Chen shrugged. The only thing that doesn't draw jealousy is mediocrity. There's no way around this, said Chu Jianying. But to be able to make over half the world jealous of me, I don't know what to say. Am I such a good target? Long Chen bitterly smiled. He still recalled how over half this world had opposed his ranking on the Devil Slaughter rankings. If it hadn't been for the spirit world, his first-place ranking would have been cancelled. Although Long Chen spoke indifferently, he was still filled with fury. The ancient races and the Xian beasts, if they opposed him, he could understand it. Even when it came to the ancient family alliance, he could accept it. What he couldn't accept was that even the righteous path's experts had been against him. He had fought for the righteous path, and he had led people to fight against the Devil Abyss's monsters. Some of those people had sacrificed themselves to protect the continent. But what he got in return was their opposition. You can't blame them. You should blame Pill Valley and the other large powers who are making them do these things and resorting to slander, sighed Chu Jianying. No, I don't accept this viewpoint of yours. If their hearts didn't contain greed, envy, and viciousness, they wouldn't be so easily bewitched by others. Those people definitely aren't good. They can't even distinguish right from wrong. So Alliance Head, don't think that they're innocent just because they don't understand. Stupidity is not a shield they can hide behind. Ignorance is not an excuse for intentionally insulting others. I need to make this clear to you. We can't let such people hold us up. When we arrive in the central Xian region, I won't let anyone intentionally make things hard on me. I will directly slap them silly. That's what I have to tell you, said Long Chen. Long Chen was not going to stifle his anger if he ran into a bunch of idiots. He didn't want Chu Jianying to be caught off guard if such a thing happened. So he was making his attitude clear to her first. He would not accept an excuse of them not knowing the truth. You're the same as that old ghost. A turd-covered stone that's both smelly and hard, cursed Chu Jianying. This character of Long Chen's was very similar to the old man. However, there was one aspect where Long Chen was a bit better. At least, he warned her first so she could prepare herself. As for the old man, back in his youth, he would explode without any warning. That was why Chu Jianying hadn't been able to bear it, and the two of them had stopped getting along. Don't worry, you are still a disciple of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Even without your relationship with that old ghost, you are the same as my child. I won't let you suffer. As for those idiots, well, I can't be bothered with them. Do as you please. In my years of seclusion, various powers have managed to infiltrate the Martial Heaven Alliance, making it rotten to the core. To completely recover is difficult. Just some medicine won't do. I have to cut all the way to the bone to fully cure it. You can be the blade I use for that, sighed Chu Jianying. Long Chen suddenly had a thought. He looked at Chu Jianying. Alliance head, did you con me? You were planning on using me like this from the start, and I actually thought I had to apologize and warn you over this? Your conning skills aren't bad either. Long Chen suddenly realized that Chu Jianying had her own goals in bringing him to the central Xian region. You little brat, what are you thinking of? Chu Jianying blushed slightly. This little fellow had actually seen through her. Suddenly, a large mountain appeared ahead of them. There was a transportation formation at the peak along with numerous figures. Don't worry, I won't let you lose out. Let's go, we've reached the transportation formation. The heaven-devouring forest was gone now, and the spatial force in this region was no longer so chaotic. That allowed people to establish new transportation formations that saved them a great deal of travel time. However, establishing new transportation formations was very expensive. Required time, manpower, and physical resources. It was a very large construction. Some transportation formations were created by the righteous path, and afterward, they relied on the people using the transportation formations to make a large amount of wealth. However, at this time, Chu Jianying decided not to waste the time to construct transportation formations. With the arrival of the Great Era, many transportation formations had started to break, requiring a huge amount of money to maintain. Furthermore, they had to be constantly on guard against the corrupt path's attacks. Most importantly, transportation formations were no longer making as much money. More and more experts were being born every day, and many people chose to sit in flying boats, saving the money required for the transportation formations. Most of the time, those who chose to use transportation formations had lower cultivation bases because it was safer. But experts would rather fly in their own flying boats. They didn't want their money to benefit the Martial Heaven Alliance. As for the Martial Heaven Alliance's own people, it cost them less to use the transportation formations, and that fee was only barely enough to maintain the transportation formations. So in the other regions, transportation formations were no longer worth building, at least compared to before. But when it came to the central Xian region, it was different. The people here had money, and to save time, they often used transportation formations. This transportation formation, which went from the eastern Xian region to the central Xian region, had hundreds of flying boats waiting their turn to use. However, when Chu Jianying's flying boat appeared, the people in charge of the formation hastily let her go through first. This was Chu Jianying's privilege as head of the Martial Heaven Alliance. After all, this transportation formation had been created by the Martial Heaven Alliance. How arrogant. Are the matters of your Martial Heaven Alliance more important than other people's? Chu Jianying's flying boat had just entered the transportation formation when a voice came from the flying boat that was originally next in line and had been replaced by her. Oh, I actually encountered some old friends. Hey, Tortoise Race, how are you? Long Chen immediately recognized the voice and looked to see the bald elder from the ancient races. It was the Nether Passage Patriarch of the 7-star dragon tortoise race that had hunted him before. Long Chen smiled and waved like he was seeing a friend he hadn't seen in a long time. Long Chen, that elder hadn't been paying particular attention to that flying boat. He had just seen the mark of the Martial Heaven Alliance. He hadn't noticed the color of the Alliance character written at the front of it, which marked it as Chu Jianying's flying boat. Long Chen came walking out of it, greeting him warmly, and the elder almost coughed up blood again. If he had hair, it would definitely be standing on end. Die! That Nether Passage expert immediately flew into a rage. Long Chen had destroyed the Eastern Xian region's ancient races, and only a few of their elites had survived. The worst thing was that Long Chen had not only destroyed the ancient races and plundered their treasuries, but he had even taken away the corpse of the sword spine armor dragon. They hadn't gotten anything. This was an absolute humiliation. This expert had almost entered a crazed, bedeviled state from his rage. Now he immediately attacked Long Chen. He was completely infuriated. He immediately used his life and death energy to lock Long Chen down tightly. At this distance, he definitely wouldn't give Long Chen a chance to run. Old brother Tortoise, why are you so angry? Your eyes are red, and your mouth is wildly frothing. Long Chen smiled at the Nether Passage expert, completely ignoring his attack. Die! The sudden attack of a Nether Passage expert made everyone else jump in fright. His punch contained immense power. Suddenly, a ray of sword light shot out from behind Long Chen. It was resplendent and mighty, cutting through the restrictions of time and space. The 7-star dragon tortoise race's Patriarch had his arm sent flying away from his body. Blood splashed. Tortoise blood is such a good supplement. What a waste. Long Chen caught the arm and shook his head regretfully. Although he said it was regretful, he didn't go collect the blood. Although that Nether Passage expert was powerful, his bloodline was not very pure. Compared to the blood of the Xian beasts, it wasn't valuable. Even if he gathered it, he would probably only be able to use it for blood tofu or something. The sword light vanished. Chu Jianying appeared behind Long Chen, staring coldly at the Patriarch of the 7-star dragon tortoise race. I still haven't even gone to settle the bill with you for bullying my disciple, and you already dared to attack me today. Your guts are quite big. The appearance of Chu Jianying made the Patriarch turn paperwhite. Chu Jianying's name contained immense power on the continent. Although they were both Nether Passage experts, he wasn't qualified to challenge Chu Jianying. I didn't bully your disciple. Long Chen was clearly the one who cruelly and viciously slaughtered my ancient races. Have you seen how he destroyed the Eastern Xian region's ancient races? Raged the Patriarch. How laughable. You were the one who took the initiative to attack my disciple, so why can't he attack back? You are a Nether Passage expert, yet you were so shameless as to attack a soul transformation disciple, and then you cry victim when you are actually beaten by him. Do you even care about your face? Sneered Chu Jianying. I never tried to kill him. I just wanted to ask him a few things. Quibbled the Patriarch. So you're saying it was all a misunderstanding? Suddenly, Long Chen leaped into the conversation. Exactly, it was just a misunderstanding. So it was just a misunderstanding. Why didn't you say so sooner? I thought that you wanted to kill me. Long Chen suddenly laughed and walked over to the Patriarch. He patted him on the shoulder and said reproachfully, It's not that I'm trying to scold you, but why didn't you say so on that day? If you had, the misunderstanding wouldn't have caused such a ruckus. Now that you bring it up, I feel a bit embarrassed over it. However, now that we're clear on things, I won't continue bothering with you over this. Let us put away our weapons and replace them with gifts of jade and silk. Come, let's hug it out to express our sincerity. Long Chen calmly embraced the Patriarch of the 7-star dragon tortoise race. The experts present were all stunned. Even the Patriarch was dumbfounded. He had no idea what Long Chen was doing. He had an urge to kill Long Chen right now, but he knew that Chu Jianying would cut him to pieces if he dared to try. Just as he was wondering what to do, Long Chen had finished his hug and once more patted him on the shoulder. "All right, we still have some urgent affairs to handle, so we'll leave first." Long Chen returned to his flying boat, followed by Chu Jianyi. They vanished as the transportation formation activated. The Patriarch stood there blankly. Even now, he hadn't managed to twist his head around what had just happened. Was Long Chen really trying to settle things with the ancient races? But how was that possible? "Patriarch, you." Suddenly, one of the disciples of the seven-star dragon tortoise race pointed at the Patriarch's back with a terrified expression. "What is it?" The Patriarch was startled and hastily spread his divine sense. He saw that at some point, blood had started to drip down his back. He suddenly let out a furious shout, and the robes on his back were blown back, revealing his skinny figure. People were shocked to find that the Patriarch's back had been skinned. It was now a mess of blood. "Patriarch, your ancestral mark." The disciples of the seven-star dragon tortoise race covered their mouths, looking in disbelief. The ancestral mark of the seven-star dragon tortoises was the divine mark engraved on their shells. This divine mark was their strongest rune. They specialized in using their shields as weapons, which made their defense so powerful. That was all thanks to that rune. This rune not only had defensive power, but it also had the ability to absorb a portion of a person's attack so that it could be used against them. Although their offensive power was lacking, their immense defensive power was enough to cause despair in their enemies. Back when the Patriarch had fought the sword spine armor dragon, in truth he hadn't used that much power. The only reason he had coughed up blood and been injured was because of how Long Chen had angered him so badly. In the battle, he had blocked and absorbed the sword spine armor dragon's attacks. That was why their defensive power was described as monstrous. However, this power stemmed from their ancestral marks. And now, that ancestral mark had vanished on him. In other words, he would be a shell-less tortoise in the future. Long Chen. The Patriarch let out a furious roar and charged toward the transportation formation, but Chu Jianying's flying boat had already vanished. "Evil Moon, is this thing actually useful? I've read plenty of books, so don't try to fool me." Long Chen looked at the rune on a strip of skin in his spiritual space. That was what he had skinned off of the seven-star dragon tortoise race's Patriarch. Taking this thing wasn't something Long Chen had been planning. It was Evil Moon who had told him to do it. He also didn't know what method Evil Moon had used to be able to steal the ancestral mark in front of two Nether Passage experts without them knowing. Of course it's useful. However, it's not useful to me, but to the heaven-flipping brick, said Evil Moon. "You want me to give it to Little Heaven?" asked Long Chen. "Yes." Based on his aura, that Baldi should be descended from the blood-addicted devil dragon. Due to the mix of dragon and tortoise blood, as well as the mix of human blood later, his bloodline is very impure, and there are several divine skills that he can no longer use. I guess that he didn't even know that this rune had another use. What kind of use? The blood-addicted devil dragon has one area where it is strong, and that is its recovery ability. My dark evil dragon race's recovery abilities stem from our own stores of energy, but the blood addiction devil dragon relies on the divine runes on its scales to absorb external energy to recover. Although this ancestral mark has already regressed from its peak state, it still has a trace of that power. I'm preparing to refine it into a passive rune for Little Heaven. If it works, Little Heaven will gain some of its power. Its defense will rise, and it will be able to absorb some of an enemy's attack. Furthermore, if it truly manages to activate this divine ability, Little Heaven's recovery ability will soar. Compared to the formation Xiachen put on, this rune will be much stronger if it works. Although hugging an old tortoise is distasteful, it's worth it for Little Heaven, laughed Evil Moon. Obediently sitting through multiple transportation formations, Long Chen arrived within an ancient city. This is the central Xian region? Long Chen looked around at the ancient city surrounding him. Some of the bricks were already covered in cracks and looked like they might shatter at any moment. It was very worn down. This is truly the central Xian region. This city is the Martial Heaven Alliance's headquarters. It's just a small part of the central Xian region, said Chu Jianyi. Don't get tricked by its worn-down air. This is actually the air of time. It contains vestiges of all the time this city has existed. Just being here will make it easier for someone to comprehend the laws of time. The headquarters of the Martial Heaven Alliance was an extremely ancient city. Although it looked worn down, it had managed to survive the passing of countless years. It was illegal to repair the broken-down areas, and it was also illegal to damage its current appearance. This could be said to be the most ancient human city on the entire Martial Heaven continent. The history of this city stretches back to the Dark Era. I've always thought that this city possessed its own fate and life. It has recorded the passing of time and manages to exist within the endless flow of time. This is its destiny. However, only some people are able to sense it, explained Chu Jianyi. Greetings, Alliance Head. As Chu Jianyi and Long Chen walked off the transportation formation, the surrounding experts immediately bowed toward Chu Jianyi. These were the young disciples of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Their cultivation bases were all at the soul transformation realm. Each of their gazes was sharp, and they possessed powerful auras. They were true experts. After bowing toward Chu Jianyi, they looked oddly at Long Chen. They clearly recognized him. Hello. Long Chen gave a faint smile in greeting. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, I've long since heard of your name. Your reputation precedes you. One of the disciples cupped his fists toward him. These disciples were all a bit excited. Although Long Chen had plenty of enemies in the rest of the world, he was still a disciple of the Martial Heaven Alliance. His accomplishments were something they were proud of. They were especially proud of the miracle he had made, growing from a small secular empire in the eastern wasteland to his current level. This legend made him an idol for countless cultivators. Even in the central Xian region, a place filled with heavenly geniuses and supreme monsters, Long Chen's name was still very resounding. Normally, they were only able to glimpse him in photographic jades. Now they got to see him in person. How are the disciples of my headquarters? Chu Jianyi smiled. They're all elites amongst elites, experts amongst experts. They are true warriors. Long Chen nodded. He heard Chu Jianying's pride. Clearly, these disciples were all people that Chu Jianying viewed with favor. They were truly powerful. Just by looking into his eyes, Long Chen could see that they were warriors unafraid of death. Such warriors were very rare. You youngsters can chat. I have some business to handle. Take care of Long Chen. Chu Jianying actually tossed Long Chen here and left alone. We wouldn't dare to take senior apprentice brother Long Chen's praise. Disciple Xenli greets senior apprentice brother Long Chen. A man with a sword on his back cupped his fists toward Long Chen. This person was the leader of this group. A sword cultivator? Long Chen sensed Xenli's sharp aura. I cultivated for 3 years in the Heavenly Sword Gate. Regretfully, I was unable to pass the Sword Steel's trial, so I was expelled. I am at most half a sword cultivator, said Xenli regretfully. Long Chen couldn't help but stare. Xenli's heavenly Dao energy was extremely powerful, and his aura was sharp. He was clearly an Empyrean, but even such a figure was expelled from the Heavenly Sword Gate? Was it really so terrifying that it didn't even accept Empyreans? Seeing his expression, Xenli explained, sword cultivators care only about their comprehension of the Sword Dao. Everything else is unrelated. Back in the Heavenly Sword Gate, I had the fortune of seeing Senior Ling Yunzi. Originally, I wasn't even qualified to cultivate in the Heavenly Sword Gate. It was only thanks to his pointers that I was allowed to cultivate there for 3 years. Senior Ling Yunzi said that I was unfortunate because my heavenly Dao energy was too strong, affecting my comprehension of the Sword Dao. However, he specially taught me a technique that could combine the power of the heavenly Daos with the Sword Dao, benefiting me greatly. Although we never officially took the name of master and apprentice, there truly is such a relationship between us. So this Xenli was actually Ling Yunzi's disciple. Long Chen immediately became friendlier. Ling Yunzi was one of the few people in this world that he admired. Or perhaps he should say that Ling Yunzi was also a miracle. He had essentially reached his peak cultivation base and stopped advancing, but by gaining a sudden comprehension of the sword Dao, he broke through all his shackles, becoming a famous figure who created a cultivation miracle. Since you're the sect leader's disciple, then we truly are apprentice brothers, laughed Long Chen. He hadn't expected to encounter one of Ling Yunzi's disciples from the Heavenly Sword Gate here. He patted Xenli on the shoulder, warmly asking, "How is the sect leader now?" Xenli felt extremely moved inside at how close Long Chen was acting toward him. He immediately answered, "He's doing well. However, I've been gone for a while." Back then, he was attempting to break through the Life Star realm. Long Chen nodded. Ling Yunzi had already experienced the vicissitudes of life. He had long since lost the temper of youth. Now he cultivated for stability without leaving the slightest flaw. Furthermore, a sword cultivator did not pursue cultivation base, but a higher realm of comprehension. So it was normal for Ling Yunzi's cultivation base to not be advancing very quickly. Is senior apprentice brother Yu Zifeng doing well? I've always been one of his worshippers, said Xenli excitedly. Ling Yunzi had brought Yu Zifeng to the Heavenly Sword Gate. At that time, Yu Zifeng was physically dead. His soul had been trapped in his sword. It was Heavenly Sword Gate that had used a secret technique to draw back Yu Zifeng's soul from his sword. As for Yu Zifeng, his soul had been immersed in the sword for so long, and he had truly comprehended the meaning of being one with the sword. Yu Zifeng was claimed to be the disciple with the most potential in the history of the Heavenly Sword Gate. In fact, even the current Gate Master had earnestly wished for him to stay in the Heavenly Sword Gate to cultivate. However, Yu Zifeng had refused. He had to return to Long Chen's side. He said that in this life he had two things he believed in. One was the sword in his hand, while the other was his boss. Xenli wanted to join the Heavenly Sword Gate but was rejected, while Yu Zifeng was someone the Heavenly Sword Gate had urged to stay but had left decisively. The difference between the two of them was immense. For Long Chen, Yu Zifeng had sacrificed his best cultivation opportunity. To be able to make a prideful and detached sword cultivator become someone that would follow him to death, Xenli had long since felt great admiration for Long Chen. He's doing very well. His realm is growing higher and higher, and he's the one with the sharpest attack in my Dragon Blood Legion. Long Chen was also proud of Yu Zifeng. He was truly powerful. He was a true genius of the sword Dao. He had a fervent belief in the sword. It was practically fanatical. Ling Yunzi could count as half his master, as Yu Zifeng's true master was actually the sword in his hand. His comprehension of the sword Dao could only be described as terrifying. Xenli led the way as they walked, and 4 disciples followed behind them. They walked down an ancient alley to a plaza. Wherever Xenli went, quite a few young disciples would greet him respectfully. Clearly, Xenli was quite influential and respected here. However, when they saw Long Chen, those disciples' expressions froze as they stared in disbelief. When they arrived at the plaza, Long Chen was surprised to see 4 balls of light within it. Those balls of light each had a martial arena within them. There were disciples fighting within the martial arenas. The surprising thing was that the opponents of these disciples were not human, but a strange kind of life form. It was around the same size and form as humans, but it only had 1 eye and had a black horn on its forehead. It was covered in black scales. The points of its fingernails were as sharp as blades. Each time it attacked, it unleashed a whistling sound as space was cut through. Although he didn't know what life form this was, sensing its berserk devil chi, he knew they were the devil race. Furthermore, based on human cultivation terms, their auras were on the life star level. There were 4 disciples atop the 4 martial arenas. Each of them wielded a sword. Their manifestations were activated around them, and rays of sword chi repeatedly clashed against the devil creatures. When those disciples' swords landed on the devil creatures, sparks flew from their scales. Their defensive power was immense. Suddenly, the sword of one of the disciples shattered upon contact with his opponent's sharp claws. That disciple was startled. He hastily retreated, but the devil creature was quick, and its other claw slammed into his chest. Its sharp claws instantly pierced through his body. The disciple became paralyzed with the claw through his chest. He couldn't move. The other claw pierced toward his head. A ray of sword light fell, cutting off the devil creature's arms and causing its black blood to spurt out. Its senior apprentice brother Chen Li. Other disciples had just started charging over to help when Chen Li appeared on the martial arena. After slicing off its arms with one attack, he kicked it away, causing it to smash into the light barrier. It let out a mournful wail as it transformed into smoke and vanished. This light was actually a killing formation that was ineffective against humans but would instantly slaughter devil creatures. Chen Li helped that disciple up. Due to being pierced in the chest by that devil creature, his body was still paralyzed. "Many thanks, senior apprentice brother Chen Li," said that disciple. Chen Li brought him out of the martial arena. Immediately a few disciples rushed over to help, using a special kind of medicinal extract to heal his injuries. Those devil creatures' attacks were very terrifying. Anyone struck would be poisoned and feel their whole body go numb. That was a very dangerous scenario, and even heavenly Dao energy was unable to suppress this poison. There were lots of disciples here. Many of them were enthusiastically coming to help, while some had faint mocking smiles. How foolish! He just advanced to soul transformation, but he challenged an 11th rank horned devil. How was that any different than courting death? A mocking voice rang out from the crowd. The injured disciple's expression was extremely unsightly. Chen Li was about to speak when Long Chen spoke first. If a person doesn't even have the courage to brave danger, then there's no need for them to cultivate. Junior brother, you're not bad. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.